Prophet Marshall Occurrence. So this video is going to be about when the people out here are low quality, right? Their humanity is not acknowledged. When I say their humanity is not acknowledged, that means their rights as humanity. When someone does crimes, even in America, that's too hideous, what happens is their humanity is no longer acknowledged, and they get the death penalty. The death penalty is when your humanity is no longer acknowledged. When the state puts you to death, that means your needs as a human, you as a human, was no longer more acknowledged in the earth. So it comes to a point that when you do something so hideous and low quality as a person, your humanity is no longer acknowledged. See what I'm saying? And that happens with the death penalty. If you are a Christian that don't believe in the death penalty, I will challenge you to look in the Old Testament when God put people to death, gave commandments to put people to death. Just in case you don't believe in the death penalty, all you got to do is look in the Old Testament, and God commanded people to be put to death for various reasons. That's God. So God didn't just let people live and do whatever they want to do and just walk around and do whatever they want to do. Okay, so if you don't believe in putting people to death, even that, besides the death penalty, if you just in general don't believe in putting people to death because it's something they've done that's so hideous, it doesn't always have to be murder. It doesn't, see, that's what people think. In order for you to be put to death, you got to kill people. Not necessarily. You got to do something so destructive that your humanity is not acknowledged. Like all this gang stalking. If it was in the Old Testament, God would command them to be put to death. I put my whole credibility on that. If people was around systematically gang stalking people, right? And we were in God, and they were doing this to God's servants. They were doing this in the community. They would be put to death. I'm definitely sure about that. And any scholar that really reads the Word of God and understands the history of the Word of God and understands God's history with His servants and with humanity, anybody that's a scholar that have read the Bible and understand the Bible and seen what has happened, and seen the pattern of judgment in the Bible against pagans and people that were wicked. Anybody with a scholar's brain knows that gang stalkers and people that's playing games in the community, that would be put to death if it was in the Bible times. Okay, the only reason they're not dead is because we have to follow the rules of the land that we live in. See, there's always rules, and sometimes we don't agree with the rules, but we have to follow the rules, and they're going to have to follow God's rules. There's always rules, and that's what needs to be understood. There's always rules, and so when people break the rules of humanity and do what they want to do like it's a game, we don't acknowledge their humanity. See, what happens is when a person like these gang stalkers, these street punks out here, when they do evil and they start to see the real wars break out, like now, I already knew the real wars was going to break out. A lot of people did. A lot of people don't have faith to believe it, but I knew God was going to bring judgment on the world. What a street punk will do is act like I don't deserve to die. It's not that what I did is not worthy of death. Well, it's depending on who you talk to. It's depending on who you talk to, like I like to say. It's depending on who you talk to, because everybody's not going to feel like you should just live. You should just live after all you've done. When we trace back your actions to COVID-19, to all this other stuff that happened in the community, when we trace your actions back to even being a catalyst, one of the catalysts for COVID-19, how can you say you don't deserve to die? If you don't know, I'm telling you as a prophet, I don't make up lies. I don't make up stories. Unlike my enemies, I don't make up stories. Okay? This judgment of COVID-19 that came here was judgment from God, no matter how it got here. Because it was a judgment because of the gang stalking. All the gang stalking. God allowed COVID-19 to happen. Okay? That was the beginning. That was the beginning. And when you realize that they're the reason why it happened, think about what I'm saying. You see how much all this been going on. Now, what I want you to think about closely is, look at who I am, who you esteem me to be. I'm the same person that was here, that's here before you now. I was the same person before COVID-19. Right? Imagine that all the stuff that you see they doing right now, all this stuff, this psychological stuff, all these games. Imagine that this was going on before COVID. It was. This was going on before COVID. Okay, so then the person that understands karma realizes that possibly the same stuff we see now is what caused COVID-19. If they was doing this before COVID, and they were, and everybody know they were, no one sat up around and thought about this because they're not truly spiritual. If they was spiritual, they would have thought about it. You would have thought about, maybe this came from God. From all this gang stalking, this stuff out here that we see. So see, God did do something about it after all. He did. You just didn't realize it. What he did was he allowed COVID-19 to happen. The plague of COVID-19 that changed this community. Remind you, people are still dying from COVID-19. Every week, people are still dying. The number is not as significant, or it's not of a lot of people as it was, but people are still losing their family. Tell the person that lose their family that it's not as much people as it was. But they still lost their family. So to them, it don't matter how many people it was or what's going on now. They lost their family to COVID, just like in the pandemic. Okay? So that's what's going on as far as COVID. COVID is still taking people's lives. They're just not reporting it because it's not a number significant enough to them to report it, but people are still losing their families right here in America. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. When you realize that these people caused the whole world to go through this, I am absolutely confident. I'm not halfway feeling this way. I sat back and watched. I was here with you. I went through COVID like everybody else. And I had a lot of time to think. I didn't have a job, so I had a lot of time to think. And to post and to post posts and to think about all of this stuff and to sit back and watch it. And I had time to really analyze what was all going on while it was going on, while everybody else was kind of scramble brain out there in the funk of all of this. I had time to really examine and analyze this without being confused. Remind you, I'm a prophet of God. So I began to realize, right, that this was a plague from God. As a result of gang stalking God's people and gang stalking in America. So you need to know that they've already caused something to happen. Now that you're listening, I've been said this. I already been said this. People just didn't take it seriously. But see, that's how we have to equate it as you that didn't listen as clowns. We have to. No matter how real you are in the streets, no matter how street people you was a clown for not listening. See, this is how we know God's people is the top, because we make street people look like clowns. And they ain't nothing, they gonna take it. It was child marriage in the country. They was marrying children. The streets didn't say nothing. Let's establish that. Let's establish this. The streets said nothing. What y'all call the streets, which is the hustlers, the gangsters, and all of that, people making money in the streets. None of them said nothing about y'all marrying children in America. Okay? While you try to act like it's neck and neck, I'm neck and neck with the streets. But the streets ain't neck and neck with my information. They not neck and neck with about the stuff that I've said about y'all marrying children. They ain't got no information that's neck and neck with my information. They ain't talking about the things that's in secret, neck and neck with my stuff that I'm talking about that was basically in secret but done right in public. So how the streets is neck and neck with me? I'm talking about the people you scared of. I'm talking about the people you scared of. I'm talking about them. I'm talking about the real gangsters. I'm talking about the ones with guns. I'm talking about the ones with guns, Dracos, 12 gauge pumps, all of that stuff. They didn't say nothing. They said nothing about America marrying children. I'm the only one. So how I'm neck and neck with them? How are me and them in the same lane? That's why when you tell me stay in my lane, I'm confused. I'm confused because I'm above the lanes that you think I'm trying to be in. I'm above those lanes. These people caused COVID-19. They wasn't the sole reason, but they was one of the reasons. Like I like to explain it, when it comes to a judgment, there is catalysts, things that gets triggered. And sometimes it's 100 catalysts, sometimes it's one. But I think there was more than one catalyst for why COVID-19 happened. So, but once all the catalysts are triggered, one catalyst, another catalyst. Once all the catalysts are triggered, then judgment comes from God. So that's what happened. All the catalysts were triggered, and judgment came in the form of COVID-19. And one of those catalysts was the gang stalking from the secret societies and from the black community and from the American community at large. They caused COVID. They were one of the catalysts of COVID. I am absolutely sure that's what happened. They were one of them. Now the other ones I also believe was gay and lesbian marriage. I believe that was one of the catalysts too. Okay, that was another one, and I'm gonna just leave it there. And let's just say the overall wickedness of the overall American community, stuff we just used to and desensitized to, all the killing of the children, all that stuff. Let's just add that in there too. The overall crime of the community of America before COVID. Let's add all of that in there. Okay? Let's just add all the things that America do that's sinful. Let's just put all that in there. But the gang stalking was a significant catalyst that caused COVID-19. I want you to know that. Okay? Now, once we realize that they were a catalyst, these gang stalkers, these wild and crazy white folks, they were part of it too. They try to blame it just on black people, but it was these wild, I seen the wild and crazy white girls. I seen them following me to the hospital in 2019 when I almost died on the streets, following me into the hospital. Yeah. When I seen one of the girls in the gas station, she probably won't think I remember, in Wesley Chapel. And I called her out for playing games and was gang stalking. Don't you know, after Wesley Chapel at a Love gas station, I think it was a Love overnight truck stop Love gas station. Don't you know, I seen her at the hospital in Gainesville, Florida. That crazy woman drove all the way to the hospital. And listen, I don't forget faces, man. I'm telling you what I went through. I don't forget faces. That same woman that I checked in the gas station, and she probably felt some type of way about it. Don't you know, 60 miles later, something like, 30 miles, something like that, to the distance between Wesley Chapel and Gainesville, Florida. Don't you know she drove from Wesley Chapel to Gainesville, Florida to see me in the hospital to see if I would be dead? Which means she probably was doing witchcraft, hoping that I died. But I didn't. This is all the stuff, these gang stuff. That was a white girl, by the way. That wasn't a black girl. That wasn't a black woman. Okay? Could probably I would say late 20s, 26, 27, something like that. Crazy little bastardly witch, which you can tell she was you can look at her face and tell she was a witch. Cause they don't always look serious. They got this goofy little awkward little weirdo little look on their face. And I was in a wheelchair being rolled down the one of the hospital hallways, and I seen the same woman, seen her face. What's the odds? I seen her at a gas station in another town, and then I seen her in the hospital. I am certain, I say before God, I don't lie, this was the same woman. She had the same hairstyle, same face, same look. What's the odds my mind thinks this is the same woman? While I'm being rolled down a wheelchair from ICU, because I lived, now I'm going to a regular room because I came down from the ICU in the hospital. When I came down from the ICU, she couldn't get up in the ICU. But when I came down to just the patient's rooms outside of the ICU, she was in the hallway in Gainesville, Florida. I'm not a stupid person, man. This is how far and crazy these people were before COVID-19 happened. This was before COVID. This was in 2019 in October when this happened. When the girl was in the hospital from the gas station in another town like 30 miles away. Something like that. Something like that. And it definitely was a different town. She was definitely in a different town. And the odds that she would come from a gas station to the hospital from a different town when there probably was a hospital, I'm pretty sure, in the other county. Somewhere along the way in another county, in that same county, right? She wouldn't have to come to another county to go to the hospital. And what's the odds in the same time frame she goes to the hospital when I do and we happen to see each other? Because I didn't go there straight as soon as I got to the town. So it was a couple days. You see what I'm saying? It was a couple, which means she probably was lingering in the city using witchcraft. And she thought she was successful. And then she followed me all the way to the hospital. from me being on the streets. I was homeless in the new town from where she saw me from. And she probably was lingering in the city doing witchcraft, and she thought she was successful and thought she would finish me off in the hospital with witchcraft. See, this is how, my point, what I'm trying to show you, this is how retarded their behavior was. And then after that, COVID-19 came 3 months later. God had enough. And God has had enough once again. These same people still lingering around 6 years later, bro. It's wartime. So now we don't acknowledge their humanity anymore. We do not acknowledge their humanity. Just like no different than the state. If you do a crime that's too bad, too hideous, right? What happens to you is the state no longer acknowledges your humanity, which means your needs as a human is no longer acknowledged. So that means my need to live, the main one, my need to live, my need to exist is no longer acknowledged. When you get the death penalty by the state, when the state puts you down, like a dog, like a rabid dog, because that's how they treat you. Like you was a rabid dog, you need to be put down. And that's how we feel about these gang stalkers. We feel like they're rabid dogs that need to be put down. They no longer acknowledge your need to live. The state, so America can't even judge me. Nobody can, because at some point, if you do something so hideous to the community, your humanity is no longer acknowledged. I can show you how the Americans practice this same mentality with the death penalty. Okay? That's all I'm saying. With the death penalty, they no longer acknowledge your humanity. That's what it is. So who you are and what you've done and how good and grand of a person you are does not matter any longer to the state. And that's your own country. That's America. That's your own country. That's like that. So then you can't judge me when I feel that me seeing stuff that you probably didn't see or wasn't paying attention to. You can't get mad when I feel the same way that you would feel when you feel like people done enough to where that we don't acknowledge their humanity. That's what happened. If you knew all that they done, you would be saying the same thing. You'll be saying the same thing. Okay, well, they done too much. But see, put your mindset in the mind of people that just are wild and crazy. That's what you gotta do. You gotta put yourself in the mindset of that. Wild and crazy folks. It comes to a point where, okay, how are we going to acknowledge your humanity when you don't act human? You don't act human. You're literally looked at as an animal. And you can't say, you see what I'm saying? You can't say I'm being irrational, because even the Americans practice the same perspective. That's what I'm going to show you. Your own country practice the same perspective, bro. If you do something so bad to the country, to where it's destruction, they're going to give you the death penalty, man. They're not going to say, well, we acknowledge your humanity, you seem like you're a good person. That no longer matters. Even if you are a good person. Unfortunately, you did something in place and time where They feel like your humanity no longer matters. That's how you got to look at it. At some point, your humanity no longer matters, man. That's how you got to look at it. You know, and how we determine that is the destruction that has been caused. We determine that by the destruction. We determine that by the mindset of the person. If a person comes out here and does crimes or do something that they don't even care about humanity, they don't even care what happens, what we supposed to do? Keep acknowledging your humanity? Think about that. We supposed to keep acknowledging your humanity. And see, this is where America is soft. America is soft concerning this. We don't, this country doesn't kill the right people. This country never kills the right people. It always kills the wrong people or attempts to kill the wrong people. That's the problem. That's why I don't take the tough act from America, because you're not that tough in your morality. Tough in your morality is we put the right people to death. We put them to death because it's no need to acknowledge your needs as a human anymore. Whatever your needs are, to breathe, to live, to eat, to have a comfortable place to be, that is no longer acknowledged. When it's like that, that means you get the death penalty. Right? You can't come out here. How we determine that? Because of the mindset of a person that is so bad, we don't trust you in humanity. We don't trust you no more. I mean, how can you trust somebody that caused so much destruction? Physically. Out here physically. How can you trust them again? How can you trust gang stalkers again? How can you trust them again? I'm serious. I'm not talking as a politician. How can you trust them again? How can you be sure that this won't happen again? Because they told you that. Are you simple-minded? So, because they told you, how you know they ain't gonna get provoked to do this to somebody else? And they just say, well, here we go again. You know how corny they are. Well, here we go again. Well, we about to get started again. Well, here we go again. Can't you see them doing something like that? But you trust them. How? Why? How can you? You see what I'm saying? You listen, you're simple. You think I'm simple, but you look how simple you are. When you trust in them, I know they done told you they ain't gonna do it again. I know they done told you they won't do this kind of stuff again. How you know that? How you know between Satan and demons that they won't be provoked to do this again? And then they'll say, well, we're sorry, we thought we wouldn't. They'll be talking that kind of language, right? But wisdom, regardless of what you believe, wisdom is, I'm not going to give them a chance to do that again. Wisdom is, I'm not going to give them a chance to do this again. Wisdom is, I'm not going to let them come out and gang stalk again. Wisdom is, I'm not going to let them come out and spread information all over the country and exhaust the community morally and even emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and exhaust the community like they exhausted this community this time. We're not going to give them a chance to do this again, because I'm supposed to defend myself. I represent an American just like you. What would you have done? you would have defended yourself like me. Let's understand the difference between me and them. You know the difference? You would have defended yourself like I did. Yes, you would have. I don't care what they talking about. I don't care what it is. So if you're smart and intelligent, you're going to relate to me. Yeah. If somebody came out here talking about whatever, but they couldn't put you in jail, you going to die for it. You're going to die for it. When whoever they talk about, you done interacted with those people. Let's say your family, like my brother did me. You done hung with your brother. You done live with your brother. You done cried with this person. I done cried with my brother. This person go and do that, and you done cried with this person. This is the person that this is what the world don't know. This is what America don't know. I done cried with this person. I'm not a person that cries very easily, as you can see. I cry with this person, right? What would you think in your mind about whatever they would say? And you know the relationship y'all had, the world don't know, but you know. You gonna die, you gonna lay down and die for some accusations against you. But you know you and this person done cried together. Done hugged each other and cried together. You gonna let that person dig up something on you and then say, well, I'ma just die for it. You gonna do that? But you know what it really is, and you know how y'all was and how y'all cried together. No, you not. Because you know what it really is. And that's all that matters. You know what matters more than anything in the courtroom is that, you know what's the most important part besides justice in the courtroom? The most important part is that the two parties, if possible, commend and have peace. That's the most important objective between two parties outside of justice as a dynamic in the courtroom. The other important dynamic is the two parties can come together in peace. So my point is, whatever you heard, me and him done the most important thing that two parties can do, that the courts would hope that two parties can do. We already made peace. So if the court come and see our situation, and they see y'all did the most important thing that two parties should do, y'all done made peace with each other, y'all crying together, we ain't gonna come and do nothing about that. The courts is gonna say no. The main objective has been done. Y'all mended together and made peace. That's what we expect in the courtrooms. People with their mind screwed on right. They want two parties to come together, and not only there's a sense of justice for either one, whoever gets justice, we still want peace, if possible, to be mended between these two communities or human beings or families represented here. If that's possible, a good justice is going to want that objective. That's going to be the true icing on the cake. And so, being that me and my brother was crying together and mended with each other and was crying together and was with each other, most justices, if you will, are going to look at the major objective between these two parties have already happened. Whether he did this or he did that, what we're looking at is these two parties have come together in peace, which defines what really happened and what it was and how far it went, and it defines the degree of what happens. For them to be able to come together defines the degree of what actually happened. Because why they together crying together? If it was such an extreme degree, then why they crying and being, you see what I'm saying? So that helps us define the degree of what actually happens without knowing it. You know why? Because we see them together crying together. So whatever the degree of what happened couldn't have been that bad, because look at how they together. The bottom line is they had peace with each other, didn't they? And that's our ultimate objective. Even if one party is wrong or right, they have mended together. And therefore, with that dynamic, accomplished of them mending peace together, we in wisdom wouldn't dig up something to then bring back a rift between these two people. Which means we wouldn't even challenge nothing that would happen after we know they had peace like that. We wouldn't even listen to either party when we know they were crying together and they were together like that. We wouldn't listen to either party about any conflict from the past. All we would listen to is something moving forward past that. Not, and see, this is where the smart people only are allowed. Not before you cried together, because after you cried together, that shows us the condition of your relationship. So now we're not going back in time, because whatever it was, we defined the degree of it based on you and him crying together. So that covered the stuff in the past. You see what I'm saying? That covered that. The crying together that you and your brother had covers anything that happened in the past. It shows us the degree of what it was, right? Now, only thing we gonna judge and come out here for is something after that you will be accused of. Because we gonna judge you to be able to cry on your brother's shoulder and then be out there and something else happen. Then we'll judge you based on that. But something on the past before you and your brother were crying on each other's shoulder, we're not judging that, because that shows us the degree of what it was and what it was, and y'all mended together in peace after that. You see what I'm saying? So what I look like digging up something on you and your brother were just crying together. What I would look like listening to him after y'all were just crying together less than 10 years ago, right? From the time you heard this stuff. What I look like listening to him. But see, you couldn't have possibly knew all information, because he gonna paint a narrative. And see, that's why people take stuff to courts, so that people do not get to paint narratives on one side without all the information from the other side. So this is why we don't care if you was right or wrong. You took the wrong protocol to handling a situation like this. You should have came to me, and I would have told you, oh, me and my brother was crying on each other's shoulders. You supposed to be smart enough to ask these questions, not me. I answer these questions, but you supposed to be smart enough, besides me, not me, but I'm smart enough to do it, but you supposed to be able to answer these kind of questions. You supposed to be able to ask me these kind of questions. But you didn't do that, did you? And that's what we talking about, buddy. See, I could have been a lawyer, as you can see also. Oh yeah, I could have been a lawyer. Because I'm good at bringing information together and putting the proper narrative and putting everything together, not the narrative that you're trying to paint. Okay? A simple person is going to take narratives, right? And not pull all the information together. Now that you know me and my brother was crying on each other's shoulders, what you think about what's being said? Genuinely crying, both of us. What would you think? You see what I'm saying? And how would you know that? From him. Because he's not going to tell you that information. Because he's painting a narrative. He ain't going to tell you, oh, by the way, me and my brother cried on each other's shoulder less than a year ago. He's not going to tell you that. You see how trifling, that nasty that person is? All for a woman. So, but if you would have came to me and ran through me with a fine-tooth comb, you would have found out this information. Okay, did you and your brother show any emotion? Did y'all go through pain together? Did y'all have any emotional times together? Did y'all have any times of empathy or apathy for each other? That's going to show the condition of that relationship, because if there's no empathy or apathy, then something extreme, or the degree that you were told, that must have been the actual degree that you were told. But even besides that, if two parties still come together after that, who am I to dig it up? I can't even do that. Even let's look at it like this. And you might not want to accept this needs to be said in a time talking about sexual abuse. Let me explain something. Let's say a woman, right, got molested by a man, a grown man. And she was a girl at the time, but he was a man. But let's say they just start hanging out. They grew up together. They start hanging out. They start chilling together. Let's just add some vices in there. They start drinking together, hanging out. They grew up, but the man slept with her when she was a kid, but they hung out. He took care of her family. He gave her money for her family. They had genuine good times together. But let's just say she fall out with this dude, and then she decided to go to the courts about what happened what happened to her when she was a child with this dude. But then when you ask the right questions to this man, he gonna say, but we moved past that. We moved past it. So I took care of this woman. I helped this woman. We cried together. We lived together. You know, we ate together. We shared meals together. You gonna pass a judgment. You're not gonna add that to your feelings and judgment of the situation as far as what it is and what happened between these two parties. See, when there's sexual abuse, if two parties have mended together, you can't get justice after that because the hatchet has been buried. They buried the hatchet. But you're trying to dig up the hatchet. Most people that's wise, the most wisest men are going to say no. We can't let you go back in time when it's convenient for you, but you was chilling with this person. As a woman, you was chilling with this dude that you felt abused you, and maybe he did. But then once you begin to chill with him after that, who are we to dig it, to acknowledge something that you even moved past yourself? You even moved past that yourself, didn't you? So so you're insulting our intelligence that later on when you get pissed off, you can go dig up this stuff that happened. Or whenever you want to bury this person or you want to kill this person, then you can go dig up some stuff, but you really moved past it. How we know you moved past it? Because you was interacting with this person in a genuine way. Y'all was crying together, eating together, taking care of each other, kids and all that kind of stuff. Now imagine us digging up something after that happened between y'all before all this happened. Y'all was crying together, he was paying your bills, you was paying his bills. Now imagine us digging up something when y'all came together like that. That's not wisdom. Wisdom is not gonna let you do that, because see, we see that you moved past it. We see that the ultimate justice was that two parties come together and mend together, and that's what happened. See, there's two types of justice. Justice where I'm vindicated from another party when something happened to me, and justice where two parties come together and mend together in peace. That's the ultimate judgment that everyone wants to see. So once that happens, that's a type of justice. Ooh, you didn't see it that way, did you? You thought people just can hang out and then just bring up stuff later on. Not with wise people. No, I'm sorry, buddy. That's not proper judgment. So I can let you hang out with this nigga. And then when times get rough or when something happens, you can dig up something whenever it's convenient for you. But you was hanging with this dude, you was chilling with him, you was loving him, y'all was crying together, y'all sharing meals together. But later on in life, whenever you feel the need, that's not proper judgment. You see what I'm saying? When two parties move past something, I can't let you dig it up. That's what I'm gonna look at. Now, if it was really bad as you claim, then why initially? I'm gonna say then why wasn't nothing said initially? That's the first question I'm gonna ask. The second question? Why your family didn't do nothing? That's the second question I'm gonna ask. The third question I'm gonna ask: if it was so bad, why you was still hanging out with them? No, if it was that bad, when somebody victimized you, you don't have a relationship with them no more. No, not where it's meaningful and you're crying together, you're eating meals together, you're helping each other's kids. No, That's not how it works. That's not how being victimized with a person works. Once you moved past it and he moved past it, we consider that a type of justice between two parties because y'all came together in peace. That's a type of justice. Which means once that type of justice is established, we're not going to come and try to get another type of justice when you get mad. See, that other type of justice told on the other type of justice and told your motives what you're trying to do. Because you already have a type of justice where you have peace between you and that person, right? That's what the real humanity, especially the godly humanity, hopes more than anything, that two parties come together, right? You got that type of justice. Now, that tells on the real narrative of the other type of justice you're getting because you had peace with this person. So then there gotta be some other motive for why it happened. Because why you ain't doing it before? Why you was crying on this person? So it gotta be some other thing. And what it is was, my brother was mad because his wife was attracted to me. So he tried to dig up something on me after we already had peace between each other. And so wise people will not let you do that. Dumb niggas, just stupid, didn't know no better. See, everybody is not supposed to be a judge of character because you're not built like, you got an IQ of 89. Your IQ is 89. What you doing judging something? You got the IQ of a caveman. I just said stuff that just went over your head. You ain't even getting it. You still ain't getting it. This stuff matters to everyone. And that's how we know you're stupid. Because you don't think this part matter. Only part matter is something happened. No, you stupid. The only part matters is not what happened. It could be bad. It could be, all of that could be there. But if you mend it between two people, I don't care what it is. Y'all cried together, y'all got past that. That was a type of justice between you and that person. Now, who are we to come out here when you just let it go and you was with this person? You was all the way with him. All the way. Who are we to go back when y'all been chilling together? Then when it's convenient for you, you gonna dig up something on him and you gonna sick us on him like a dog. You gonna sick us on him like a dog. No. We not gonna do that because we already know y'all had a type of justice between each other. So we smart enough to know we're not gonna dig up something on somebody when it's convenient for you when you get mad at this person. Some secrets that y'all got, you gonna dig it up on them when you mad. That's exactly the context it is. And so even if it was true, people ain't gonna honor it. Because we see the nature of what happened. We see the nature of your relationship with that person presently, and we see the nature of what happened. Right? And we understand the context of that nature, because if it was so bad, how did y'all make it to be hugging or crying on each other? How did y'all even make it to that point? So then we even judge that by the justice that you have, which is peace between each other. We judge what actually happened, because if it was that bad, why y'all was together? Why ain't nothing been said in the family? Why he still cool with the family? Why he still cool with you? Why y'all still living in the same room, in the same house, and nothing is said? Y'all lived together for how many years? No, it's not. That's not coming out. Coming out is, in the real context and genuine context, is I had nothing to do with that person after that happened. And then I came out later about it. Not, oh, I chilled with this person the whole time. And then I came out about it. No, we don't honor that, buddy. That's a 7 hour. We don't honor that. No. See, white people stupid. In America, we don't honor that. We honor that something happened to you and you withdrew from this person for the rest of your life. And then you came out later. And now it makes sense because you was never with that person. You never connected, and then everybody gonna say, yeah, they never was together. So we gonna honor it because you was never. So we believe the degree of what happened because you was never with that person. But if we see you with that person, laughing and crying, and y'all taking care of each other kids, come on now. No. I seen his son born in the hospital. Oh, he didn't tell you that? Oh, that's it right there. That's 7 hours. He ain't tell you that I seen a son born in the hospital. Would you go that far to invite somebody that you feel victimized you sexually to see your newborn child? And y'all chilling together, smoking weed and chilling together after that. He invites you to the hospital to see his son born. Would you think somebody victimized him? Would you honor that? Would you even honor it? If one of the brothers had a child and I came to see his child born in the hospital, you gonna go let him dig up something after I went and seen his son born in the hospital? That's where you lose right there, buddy. He sent my son baby clothes. I'm talking about real life. I'm talking about this is real life right here. This part is real life. This is not an example. This is not an analogy. I was giving analogies earlier. I went to see his son born in the hospital, right? He gave my son clothes like a baby shower when my son was born. Would you let him dig up something on you? When you done seen his son born in the hospital with his wife right there holding the child, you would let your community dig up something on you between you and him, and you done seen his son born in the hospital. Not later on in life, you just happen to see him walking down the street. He invited you to see his son born. Would you go that far to invite somebody that you feel victimized you to see your son born in the hospital? You wouldn't go that far, would you? So then that tells us the nature of what happened and what really all the details and what it would consist of and what you felt and the present state of your relationship with that person. And ain't no way in the world we gonna let you invite him to see your son born in the hospital, but then when you get mad at him, you gonna dig up something on him. You see what I'm talking about, right? That's all I'm saying. Ain't nobody I know is gonna be victimized by somebody and then say, in the full context of what he talking about, and then say, oh, come see my son born in the hospital. Who would go that far? Listen, you so smart, you stupid, bro. See, I'm gonna tell you what type of people you are. I explained this before. You're the type of people that you will give all the smart answers all the way to the end of the world. But you're too stupid. You're smart, but you're too stupid to understand what real life really is. So all you do is give all these smart answers, but you're not smart enough to know what real life really is. Boom, that's 7 out. Oh, you can say a whole bunch of smart stuff like that's predator's guilt or victim's guilt or some stuff like that. Yeah. Where he goes as far as, but then you're not smart enough for real life where you understand culture of black people. And you're not smart enough, intelligent, and cultured enough, no pun intended, to understand that most black people, if they're victimized by a particular person, they gonna isolate themselves from that person. They not gonna have, that's our culture. So although you might understand psychology, different cultures act differently with psychology. It's not the same response. Different cultures is not the same response psychologically. So a white woman's culture and her psychology of how she might be doing is not what black people would do in their culture. So you understand that, right? So when you apply, even the smartest psychologists cannot apply the same psychology on every person because they come from different cultures. So you have to incorporate, this is why I don't let white people get involved in my politics, because you have to incorporate culture into psychology. Oh, that's not true? Oh, okay, so then explain the psychology of people that's killing these children. Why isn't, you can explain it from how white people are? You can explain how black people are from white people's psychology and how they are? Well, why they ain't doing the same thing? Because they come from two different cultures. So you won't understand psychology of black people until you understand the culture. And you can have all the goods. You can have PhDs and all this psychology stuff, right? But you can have degrees in psychology. But if you don't understand culture, you're not going to understand psychology. Not to its fullest degree. No, you're not. No, you're not. So in our culture, when it comes to sexual abuse, when we, in black culture, we alienate that person from our life. That's what we do. Ain't no black people I know that embraces somebody that really genuinely in the real context would sexualize them as a predator. We don't embrace nobody like that. Perfect example, somebody that sexualized me when I was a kid, a woman in my family. I never embraced her. After she did that to me when I was a child, I never embraced her. Never. Again. And I remembered it, and every time I talk about her, I think about that. I don't think about nothing else. That's how you know you've been sexualized as a child. You don't go no further with that person. No, you don't. My mom was hanging out with her, and I felt offended because she was. I held on to it. That's real victimization or victimizing in our community, in African American community. And I gave myself, which is the greatest punchline, as an example. I was sexualized by Amy Currents. Amy Currents in my family. Right? When I was only 16. I didn't tell my mom when it happened. Right? I didn't tell nobody. I didn't tell nobody in my family. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell my brother. I didn't tell... He probably... I don't think I ever told him. I don't think I did. He might not even remember her because she was a distant person in the family. But she was just as old as my mom. Her mom, her and my mom could have were probably like 5 years apart at best. They were in the same... She was in the same age bracket as my mother, which means she was more like an aunt than a cousin, right? As far as age. Okay, so when I was sexualized by her, I did not embrace her at all. That part stuck in my mind as a young person. I was confused, and I knew she was too old to be doing that. Now, if she was around my age, I probably wouldn't have thought nothing about it. But I was smart enough to know how old she was. She was an adult, and I wasn't classified in the same age bracket as her. You got adults and children. Now, if she was a child, and I knew she was a child, and we was hanging out, playing video games together and all that kind of stuff, I'm not going to say you was an adult. You wasn't. Because you literally wasn't. But if she was an adult and I'm a child, I don't respect that later on in life. You start to grow up and realize I wouldn't have done that if I was a grown man. Now, as a child, okay, you know, you're going to make mistakes because you a child. You just growing up. But as a grown man, though, as a grown woman, you hold people responsible. So for me, I never, now it even gets tricky. If you got two kids that messed around as kids and then they grow up and they still kind of mess around a little bit, that's two adults. That's kids that's going, and that defines that situation, which means it was two kids that allowed themselves to sexualize each other and they kept it going after adulthood. You can't even say nothing with that. So you got to really know what you're doing. You come out here and you play with people and you don't know what you're doing. So, you know, so that's why all this stuff happened. See, somebody really did sexualize me. My brother never had a grown woman or man in the family sexualize him. I did. You understand? I did more than one time. Anthony Smith, Danielle's dad, said that he wanted a woman that looked like me, and I was only like 12 or 13 years old. Well, you don't feel like that's him being attracted to me? But I let that go. And me and him was always cool after that. See, that's a perfect example. The difference between Amy Currents and Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, I remember what he said, but we moved past it. So who am I to kind of demonize him after that? I couldn't do it. But even though he said something I wouldn't have said as an adult, this man went and served in the military. He served, I think he went to Kuwait, and he fought in the Kuwaiti War, right? Anthony Smith, back in the 90s, that Kuwaiti War, right? And he was in a real tour because I remember my grandmother told me how he said he was shooting people down and they were just dying. So he was in a real tour. He did tours. This man went in the military, came all the way back home, and sexualized and was attracted to a child. He said he wanted a woman with brown eyes and an overbite like mine. He wanted a woman with my looks. He wanted a woman with my looks. And I'm only like 12 or 13. I was 12, I think. I remember where it happened and everything. Me and him riding in the car together by ourselves. That's when he told me that. Now, I could have said that's a sex predator, right? But we moved past it. So who am I to dig it up and say, oh, this person is this? I could have did that. I could have went to his daughter. I could have went to Danielle, while y'all talking about Danielle, I could have told her what her dad said, and she would have felt like anything that between us wouldn't even matter because of what my dad said to him. Some people would say that's a curse. That's why stuff happened. Because the father sexualized you. So he was cursed in that way. You can't tell no child, I want a woman that look like you and brown eyes and look like you and me and him riding together, so it was like that. It wasn't like a joke. He wasn't laughing. So then, but see, I went ahead and let that go. You know what I'm saying? I didn't think nothing about that. And I found out other information on that person and how sexual that person is. And so that helped me understand the context of what he said, you know, from other situations that he had with other people, you know, but with Amy Currents on my mom's side, that dude was on my dad's side. On my mom's side, she actually physically did something. And so this was a grown woman for sure. And I was not a I wasn't a child. I wasn't a man. I never embraced her again. I never said anything like I wanted to be around her or asked about her again. I never asked about her and her family or nothing again in a good light, you know. And then eventually I told my mom what happened, and when she still was hanging out with her, I told her I felt betrayed. I was offended. I was offended by that because this was a grown woman. Right? So I'm showing you the difference between when I really went through it. This is what black culture feels. If you do something like that to me, our culture is we gonna isolate ourselves from you for the rest of our life. We ain't gonna have nothing to do with you. We ain't gonna be close to you. We ain't gonna acknowledge you. We ain't gonna talk to you. I don't know no black people that embraced the person. And it really was like you bad. When you couldn't understand why a grown man or grown woman would do that. See, as kids, you gonna give a pass because you gonna say, that was a kid. But as a grown man, when you grow up, you know she was a grown woman, that's when you're going to say, once you grow up, nah, that was a grown woman. That's what's going to bother you. That's what's going to make you hang on to it. But anything we did as kids, man, people going to let that go. Because you're going to grow up in your understanding that people was kids and you probably did stuff with other kids yourself. Okay, so then you're going to apply that too to your understanding about other people that you sexualize or sexualized you. You're going to apply the same thing that you did yourself with other children. Okay, so that's how that goes. But, you know, we don't embrace people that really did us wrong and we really feel that way. That's not our culture. And black people know that. So when you have somebody come out here yapping, that ain't even black culture. That ain't our culture. We ain't coming out here to the community. No. That's white boy stuff. I'm just being real. That's their culture. We ain't coming out here to this whole community because we don't want nobody to know about stuff we went through. We don't want them to know our part. That we was even involved in something. Like, you know, we don't want nobody to know that. So that's the real nature, man. People don't even want people to know. So you find somebody want people to know. I don't trust a spirit like that. I don't trust a person that's out here glad to tell people that what happened to them. You know what I'm saying? I don't trust no spirit like that because I never was glad. I wasn't glad to tell people something. You know, something that I think somebody sexualized me. I wasn't glad to tell people that. So, man, that's the difference, bro. Like, the stuff that my brother talking about, man, he ain't never have no fully grown adult sexualize him. I did. I really went through that. But you don't hear me crying about it and singing songs about it. You don't see me out here in these streets about it. You know what I'm saying? And that's the people you believe right there. We ain't out here crying. I ain't crying about that. It was what it happened. It's what it is. Life goes on. Basically. Life goes on. Morning. Alright. So that's what happened to me. That's not our culture. Our culture is when something happens, we alienate ourselves. That's what we do. Now, I don't know what white people do. I don't know what they do. But I know what we do. We don't embrace nobody as black people. And we feel we was sexualized or something. We no, we don't. We don't, man. We don't do that. We don't do that. That's just not our culture. So see, if you bring white folks in on it, you let white folks tell you, oh well, this person has victim guilt or compassion or something. Victim's compassion. Something like that. You know what I'm talking about. I guess that applies to y'all culture. Because every culture is different. Think about it. If you go to a remote island where you got people that, are tribal indigenous people, you think they're going to have the same psychology as you? No, this is for white America. If you go to a remote island, and these people are tribal indigenous people on a remote island that they removed from society and civilization. You think you're going to be able to use and apply what you know about psychology to them? No. So psychology doesn't go totally the full distance in your context with every culture. So then you basically you got different psychologies for different cultures. And so the stuff that psychologists apply is only applied basically to white culture. That's going to dominate. That's going to be their psychology. So anytime you even go to a psychologist, most of that is applied to white America. That's white America. They defining the psychology of white America. That's why they misdiagnose you and me and our children. They misdiagnose our family because they applying it from their culture and their psychology from their culture. They put your children on all kind of pills because your children are indigenous people, indigenous children, y'all indigenous people. They apply all that white American psychology to your children and to us as a people. It's not the same psychology. It's not. And the perfect example I got is people that, let's say people in the jungle, right? Just in case you don't understand indigenous, what that means. Some people don't understand what it means. Okay, so indigenous tribal people in the jungle, you think they gonna have the same psychology that this woman is talking about? This white woman talking about? So then sexually, if when they go through things sexually, do you think it's gonna be the same psychology that she talking about of how victims handle things? No, they gonna handle things totally different in their tribe. If they're sexualized by an adult in that tribe, they not gonna handle it the same way white people would handle it, or even black people would handle it. They might kill the person. They self. It might be their tradition that whoever sexualized you, you have to kill them. What about that? That could be actually a real culture. That whoever sexualized you, you kill them, and you explain it to the tribe that that's what happened, right? Right. But you ain't gonna be able to apply white psychology where, oh, they're still together because they have victim compassion for the predator. Victim compassion. Predator compassion. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Predator compassion. You think in a tribe, an indigenous tribe, they're gonna have predator compassion? No, that's not gonna apply, because your culture is going to dictate ultimately, even if you have no feelings, ultimately your culture, the way your culture has brought your psychology up, that's gonna dictate ultimately what you do and what you don't do. Even though you might be having some feelings of compassion, the way you was brought up in your culture, that's gonna dictate what you do and don't do. So when you hear white people talk about anything psychologically, this is food for thought. You can't apply all of that to your culture. Even when they talk about bipolar, schizophrenic, some black people are not bipolar. You're indigenous and they do not understand you. They do not understand your energy. I am convinced that many black people have been misdiagnosed because they apply white psychology to you as an African person. Think about it, it's two different tribes. So they ain't gonna make no psychology for Africans. They gonna make psychology for Europeans. They gonna make psychology for Americans. Look at you. Listen, man. I just set you free. They applying that white people's psychology to you, and you are African. You an indigenous African. I realized this. I woke up. How they gonna say you bipolar? Based on what? On how white people act? That's what it gotta be. Because if I was raised around people who, let's just say bipolar, for example, they go from one extreme to the other. They might talk. This could actually happen. Their conversation, how they have dialogue, is from one extreme to the other. And I can show you Americans that do that. So if you base, whether somebody's bipolar based on fluctuation of back and forth extremes, then I can show you Americans that do the same thing. That's in their right mind. This is why. This is the punchline. The people that actually are bipolar, they go under the radar because they act just like everybody else. Well, explain that. Well, how we know they was bipolar? You can kind of tell if somebody is different. No disrespect, but look at Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey is bipolar. Did you know she was bipolar? You did not know. Most of us did not even think that Mariah Carey was bipolar. She showed no signs that we would be looking for. She didn't show any signs of that, did she? But then again, she might not even be bipolar. You know what I'm saying? She might not be. She might have got misdiagnosed. They say Marilyn Monroe was bipolar. Because she a sexual woman? I mean, I don't know, man. That's a whole different issue. Keep in mind, Marilyn Monroe got married the first time when she was 16. She's the most famous, one of the most famous. Jerry Lewis is the most famous child marriage relationship. He married his 13-year-old little cousin. And nobody said nothing about that, right? Right. Because he was a white man. Oh, you didn't apply pedophilia psychology to Jerry Lewis, did you? I don't think so. Hey, them white folks didn't say nothing about Jerry Lewis marrying his 13-year-old cousin. But see, that's different cultures. You see what I'm saying? So then you have to redefine what pedophilia is, because you go to another country and they have sex with girls. I'm a cultured person. So then what is that psychology? Is it pedophilia, or is they just they attracted to their own children? They got a culture where they choose to understand. They choose to allow themselves to feel that this is acceptable. They feel it's acceptable. Who am I to come into their culture and say that's pedophilia? Now you get what I'm saying. The problem in America is because it's a melting pot. Here's the punchline. There's so many different tribes. No one can decide on what pedophilia is. Ooh. You go to another country, they the same tribe. This is the only country where it's a melting pot, literally. You go to Brazil, they all feel the same way. 14 is good for them. 14 is good, right? Oh, in America, that's pedophilia. So they don't feel that they got the psychology of a pedophile in Brazil. So then how do we figure, who are we to judge them and say they got the psychology of a sex predator? Who are we to judge that? It's by one's mind, one own conscience. Would you feel that really is the compass? Really, I mean, ultimately, at least collectively, it is. As far as each country, it's your own conscience on what you feel is pedophilia and what is not pedophilia, because we can't decide on it as a whole world community. So if you take this situation up to another level, everybody gonna say, well, over here they do this, over there they do this, over here. So everybody got their own definition of what pedophilia is, what that tell you? I mean, you could even go to some tribal communities. They probably sexualize babies. I bet they did. I bet you can find tribes that sexualize babies. So you telling me in the world we live in, you would like me to believe that they ain't never been no tribe that sexualized and had sex with babies? Of course, bro. I mean, that's just common sense to those who are cultured and live in the real world and understand history and what it consists of. People did this, man. That's why, I don't act like I'm a baby bird. I'm just born yesterday. I know people done everything that you can think about. Everything. And I live with that understanding, man. I don't act like, oh, well, I can't believe this is going on. I can't believe that's happening. I can't believe that's happening. Well, it ain't nothing surprising to me. I'm not surprised about it. Nothing surprises me. See, America, man, I'm going to tell you their other problem. Their other problem is they got a fake standard that they don't live by, that they present to everybody to live by. They got a fake standard. No, they don't live by this standard now. They don't live by the standard. They don't live by the standard they sell. Some do, some don't, and that's where the problem is. It's a balance between those who do and those who don't. That's why they get caught up in all kind of sex scandals and everything, because half of them not living it. Half of them not living it, right? They not. You know who living it more than anybody? Me and you. Me and you, we living it more than the government. We living it more than the government. We live this way and they don't. They set a standard and made two different communities where we live by a standard that they don't even live by. We live by standards that the government don't even live by. Okay, why they always getting caught up in something then? Explain it, man. So then what happened in America is people had two different standards. Some was living by this standard and some was marrying children and doing all this other stuff. That's what they was doing. They was doing all this other stuff the whole time and we didn't even know. I come on the scene to show y'all this country is marrying children. So what that tell you? They created a standard for us and we became a whole different society from the government. They actually are their own community and there's some with them from this community. But they are their own community based on their standards of marrying children. They created a standard for us to live by, but they live a whole different standard. They marry children, have sex with them and everything. In New York alone, they got rid of child marriage. But they married children as young as, at one time, 14. Right? It's like Brazil, with parents' consent, like 14. But from 2011 to 2019, they had 385,496 cases of child marriage. That's from 2011 to 2019. You can go look it up. That's in New York. That's how many people marry children here in New York. So the community obviously is involved, but they get the standard from the government. We have a standard that the government and the culture made for us to live by, which we could have lived like Brazil and just saying we like 14-year-old girls and 13-year-old girls or whatever. You know what I mean? But that's not the case. They gave us a standard. This is what I'm trying to show you. This is what should make you angry. They gave us a standard to live by, but they themselves live like the rest of the world. But they made us the civilization, so we actually became a different country, our own community, where our standard is we ain't having sex with nobody under 18. That's it. Bottom line. we ain't having sex with nobody under 18. That's how I was raised in America. Not 14, 15. No. We all know that. Stop playing. Ain't nobody sit around and thought, oh yeah, you can have sex with that little 15, 16-year-old girl over there. Who thought about that as a grown man? No, you didn't think about that. No, you didn't. But they did. America, the government did, and they was marrying girls the whole time. So what happened is we had two different communities the whole time with two different standards. That's why you standing up. But then when you stand up, you realize, oops, government had a whole different standard. They was living by a whole different standard. Oops, we can't do nothing because it's two different standards in our community. This issue with child marriage shows us that there's two different standards in our community, which means now you can't enforce on anyone. You can't enforce on me or anyone if your country is marrying children. It's two different standards. Now, if y'all wasn't marrying children and the age of consent was 18 in the whole country, then you could say something. But once you compromise, you can't say nothing. That's how we feel in the real world. Once you compromise that, you can't say nothing, bro. But the reason why you thought you could, because you was confident that your country was living like you. Like, oh, they ain't having sex with nobody under 18. That's what you thought, didn't you? That's what you thought. Keep it real. That's what you thought. But that's not the truth. The truth is, you know what the truth is? They having sex with children the whole time. That's the truth. The whole time they was having sex with children. So we grew up, and our generations created our own standard outside of what the government was allowing to happen. We grew up in generations of America with our own standard, and the government was living a whole different, issuing out a whole different standard. But they was enforcing on the standard that they gave us to live, but at the same time, they was contradicting it with child marriage. But they'll lock us up. They'll lock me and you up on definition of being a pedophile, but they do the same thing by law. And you see the problem. See, you should have knew America was going to contradict itself like this. Where they doing something and then we like, what's that? You told us we couldn't do that. You should have knew America was going to be doing something like this. Doing something they told us not to do. So you see what happened? Two communities grew up side by side. And I began to define the difference, the profit. We all grew up thinking under 18 we can't have sex with, right? That's the standard. We do stuff as kids? Of course we did, because we're here in America with all this gyrating and percolating. All this sex and the porn, pornography stores, and if you say you ain't grew up with sex, you lying. A normal person grew up with HBO and Cinemax. Cinemax, HBO, and Showtime. Showtime After Dark. You remember that? Cinemax and Showtime was the worst. HBO was kind of soft porn. They did stuff, but it was, it wasn't no good. Cinemax and Showtime was the nasty stuff, which most families didn't have for that reason. Because after dark, Cinemax turned to porn. That's basically what it was. But they had movies like everybody else during the daytime. But at nighttime, this is why parents didn't get Cinemax. If you grew up in the 90s and 80s, you know what I'm talking about. Parents did not get Cinemax. Mostly bachelors and people that lived on their own without kids. Them the one bachelors got Cinemax. You go to a dude's house, he ain't got no kids. He got Cinemax and Showtime. That part. But people with families didn't get Cinemax because at night, Cinemax turned to pornography. Literally, like you turn on Cinemax, boom, there it is. Ain't no other movies coming on to about what, 5 o'clock? Oh, 6 o'clock, I think. Maybe even 7. It started from about what, midnight to 7, right? About that, right? That's Cinemax and Showtime. So that's how they did it, where they had, instead of just putting pornography everywhere, they had certain channels that had it at the end of the night when everybody settled down. See, that's the culture we had. They at least had enough respect to where, okay, at the end of the night when the kids should be in bed. But that wasn't the case, was it? Most of us was sneaking and watching. We were sneaking and watching it, wasn't we? See, and so that's how you got all these images. Whether it's from HBO or other channels, you got all these images. Or remember ordering, if you was a kid, didn't you order sex on the pay-per-view? Of course you did. Your mom them had the pay-per-view. You seen them nasty movies? Oh, I'm ordering one of them. And then you gonna act like it wasn't you. Remember as a kid, oh, well, I didn't do that. Oh, really? Oh, that happened? You ordered nasty movies and didn't even care. You remember as a kid you didn't care? Now you're grown, like, how did I do that? They was gonna figure it out. It's gonna come on the bill. As a kid, you didn't even care. You thought, well, I guess you thought they would underestimate you. Or the family would think, oh, well, that just must have just got on there some way. We don't know how. You remember the cable, when you pay your cable bill, you remember you had to go to a place and pay your cable bill? They probably trying to explain it, like, well, yeah, how did that happen? We don't know. Yeah. So that's how we all came up. And the nasty movies, the nasty books, the VCR tapes. So of course you got sexual as a kid being here in America, and nobody don't want to take responsibility that they fed us the monster of lust as kids. We got our hands on magazines. I remember walking down the street and it was 3 magazines wrapped in plastic together, never been opened, like it fell off a truck. I can't make this up. In on the street, wrapped perfectly in plastic. I picked it up like, how? like I can't believe this. 3 magazines, porn magazines. I walked down the street and this happened. No lie, no lie. That's what happened to me. Maybe it was demonic. It was because I'm a prophet. It was 3 magazines, pornography magazines. No lie, wrapped in plastic and everything. But ultimately, I threw them away. But see, that's how it even happened. Sometimes you found them in the house. Sometimes you found them outside. Found them in nooks and crannies in the house. You didn't ask who they were. So, you know, you can still remember some of the most vivid things that I seen. I remember as a kid some of the things I seen from the pornography magazines and things, from cousins, older cousins and things. You know, that's just how America was. You know, so you should have knew that all this stuff was gonna happen, where sexuality was just out the roof, and this was bound to happen, man. All this was bound to happen. All of this was bound to happen, and that's how you need to look at it. That's how you really need to look at it, man. That's how you need to look at it. All of this was bound to happen, and you know, because this country was too sexually charged. It's the most sexually charged country in the world, I would say, as far as entertainment, music, visuals, insinuations of sex. America is the most sexually charged community. Like as charged, like electric charge, like it's the most charged, sexually charged community. There's no country more charged than this. And so for people to act like they don't know why, you know, to challenge people's sexuality is suicide. Because I'm going to go show you all the stuff that America did. And we all know. Just based off the adult shop stores, the porn stores, all the pornography on TV, Showtime, Cinemax, all of that stuff that we seen as kids. Real Sex, everybody remember Real Sex. Used to come on HBO. And when our parents was going to bed, we watched this Real Sex as a kid. That's how we grew up in the 90s. We was left to our own devices many times as kids in the 90s. And we watched HBO, Real Sex. We were figuring out sex from HBO. Watching Real Sex and people talking about sex on the streets and all the stuff they like to do and all this stuff. That's how we figured out sex real young. You know, so for people to act like they ain't grow up in America, I'm telling you what it was. We grew up on HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, porn tapes. People in the house got porn in the house. Most families had porn in the house. Some type of video, some type of porn magazine, something. If they were fairly young, they had something in the house. That's the bottom line. That's how it was. Some was more discreet about it than others. Where your kids couldn't get a hold of your porn, they couldn't get a hold of your magazines. But then some people was more lax and thought simple-mindedly that the kids wouldn't find it, the kids wouldn't do nothing with it. And we was sneaking in, watching pornography and everything. Magazines and everything. I remember that as a kid. And so that's going to provoke kids to act out sexually, obviously. And so when they do, who are you to judge them when all this stuff has been in the culture and everywhere? What you think a kid gonna do? Act out on everything they seen. I remember bestiality. Oh, they try to hide it now, but bestiality, pornography was in the community way in the 90s. Beautiful women beside horses. That was the main animal, horse, because of their endowed penises, right? So a horse has been in pornography forever. Women right beside horses, real women. Goats, I remember goats, horses. We all remember that. And sometimes you would get a porn pay-per-view and they would have women having sex with animals. I remember one time I bought a pay-per-view a porn movie. In one part of the movie, they didn't show the woman in the animal, in the dog, but they let you hear the visual, the audio, where the dog was barking and the woman was moaning, doing this porn movie I ordered. And so when you see those ideas expressed and you know they've been expressed, who are you to act like it's strange? That's what I'm tripping off of. Maybe it's a younger generation that didn't grow up like we did. Maybe it's America that forgot who they was. But whatever the case may be, I'm taking you down memory lane to show you your own country, your own actions. And while you might trivialize the effects of that on the psychology, I'm maximizing the effects of that on the psychology of America. Oh, how do you think these people became like that? They seen stuff all their life. They seen pornography all their life. And now nobody want to act like back to psychology. Like we don't understand the psychology of these people around us. They grew up on all kind of perversion. You know, and then you don't know why there's pedophiles in your community. You don't know why there's sexually charged people in your community. You don't know why there's sex predators that just rape women and everything right here in New York. When I was in Jamaica this past summer, this dude raped the woman. I'm pretty sure she was black. In Jamaica. I'm pretty sure she was. And the dude didn't even have to break in her house because her door was unlocked. And he came in and got a knife from the kitchen and went and raped her in the room. He got a knife from her kitchen. She was that laxed to where she had the door unlocked. This is what happened this past summer. And he raped her right in the in her own house. He took a cell phone, a big old blanket, and he took her knife, the knife. So I believe these people were sexually charged by American culture. That's what it was. All this stuff, all this porn over the years, it don't have all good effects. It don't make all just good lovers. Because you know, some people will fight to say it's for educational reasons. Because some people don't know how to have sex. And but you can't say that's gonna be the only outcome. The dark side of pornography in our country has been how it affected the psychology of the people. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? And so then you realize, okay, well, I can't act like we don't know how this country became like this. You do know. You do know. Bestiality, I've been seeing real men that especially started out on pornography and the internet in the early 2000s. You remember in the early 2000s. Come on now, stop playing. Now you can't find it, really, without going on your own venture. But you remember back when you wasn't looking for it? And you get the pop-ups and all of this stuff and bestiality. I remember when you weren't even looking for it. And you get all these these pop-ups specifically. Like, okay, you see these pop-ups here, they don't do it no more because it's just, now the culture done changed, you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't remember all the stuff they used to do. But I remember when you used to get the pop-up bestiality pop-ups when you was watching regular porn. And I can take you to different cultures, like in Mexico, where they have donkey bars. Donkey bars where women have sex with donkeys on stage while men are drinking, watching her have sex with a donkey. So to them, that's not perversion. To them, that's not some Freddy Krueger act. That's not some weirdo. This woman is having sex with animals in Mexico. Oh, you can go look it up on Wikipedia. You can go look it up on Wikipedia. Real Mexicans, go ask them. They got donkey bars. Everybody know about that. Go look up donkey bars. Like a bar, like where you drink at. Go look up donkey bars in Mexico where they have sex with donkeys. Donkeys now. Some people would say the reason why even stuff happened with dogs is because it's out of convenience. It's not even out of preference. A dog is there for human nature's sexual curiosity. Where it's not even that a person want to have sex with a dog, but the dog is conveniently there. Especially with children. I'm just showing you psychology that people don't really know. I mean, some people don't know psychology. I could have been a psychologist. I understand psychology very well. You know, so I understand the difference between a pedophile and somebody that had a sex history as a child with other children. That's not the same thing. So, no, because children gonna have sex with each other. So how is that a pedophile? How is one of them a pedophile? And then when you add everything that consists of sexuality into that equation, how can you say it's wrong? When you see grown men having, grown women having sex with animals. Oh, it happens. They got laws. They've already addressed it. All you got to do is look around the world. And you'll see all the countries that allow people to have sex with animals. You'll be so surprised. I already looked it up. So many countries allow people to have sex with animals. You can't even esteem it as strange. You can't even esteem it as strange, man. You can't. You can't even esteem it as strange. You know, it's just depending on how educated you are. That's just, I mean, I've heard all kind of stuff, man. You know what I mean? Even from the time I was a kid in high school, you know, white girls telling me about when I was in high school how another girl would let a dog eat her out. You know what I'm saying? This is kind of stuff I was hearing in high school from pretty white girls too. Pretty. And I'm in class, and in this particular class, I actually, it was no black. I don't know how I became like the only black guy in this class, because this was a black school dominantly. But in this particular class, I was around all these little pretty white women, little white girls, my age, you know, in my age bracket. We all in the same class and everything, right? So, like, it wasn't no black girls there. It wasn't no black dudes there to compete, and it was no competition. I was the only black dude there, so I really got to shine in this class, right? So I would have like these girls would have these conversations about just random stuff. So one time, these white girls was talking about this one girl somewhere else, right? I don't know, maybe in their neighborhood, I'm guessing. And she was saying how she put tuna fish on her vagina and let the dog lick out her vagina. I'm sitting here listening to these girls tell me this, laughing about it and everything. See, I got those moments vividly in my mind, so, like, I mean, I done seen a lot, I done heard a lot, and I'm educated. So for you to talk to me about pedophilia or even sex with animals, I can take you back to high school when white girls was talking about letting a dog eat her out with tuna. No lie. No lie, man. And, so it's depending on who you talk to, man. You know, if you ain't, I don't know what to say. If you ain't grow up a certain way, or you didn't have certain experiences, you just didn't. But if you talk to the average person, they gonna tell you none of this stuff is strange to them. Like, I've heard it all. You know, yeah. And the older you get, the more true that is. The more true. In this particular case, I think sexual perversion was worse in the past. You know, there's more laws now, but back in the day, it was worse. It was worse. I think so. I think it was worse. But in every standard. In fact, if you look at the age of consent in America, it was 12 years old. Like in the 1800s. It was 10 and 12 over the whole country. And then the state of Delaware had the age of consent at 7 years old. That's how bad it was. America is the only country that set the age of consent at 7 years old. They were in the state of Delaware in the year 1880. This is the history. I think the history matters. Okay, so just like they'll say it ain't no timeline on sexual abuse, well, there ain't no timeline on examining America having sex with 7-year-old girls. They were having sex with 7-year-old girls in the year 1880. So imagine you pull it all together and you realize they had sex with girls that's 7 years old in this country. 10, 12, and then they marrying children too. Imagine them telling you, that same community telling you about anything sexually. You just, it's what it becomes is those who are educated versus those who are not educated. That's basically it. And you're going to go blindly with the standard that they gave you. You're going to think that they hold that same standard until you educate yourself. And you can be like, wow, I never even knew America was like that. Exactly. But until you educate yourself, you're going to remain a slave in your mind. Like, just letting them feed you a standard that they don't live themselves. And you should be offended. You should be offended that you was fed a standard that America didn't even live. They was living just like everybody else. The rest of the world, you know. Brazil, 14 years old. They don't, that's the standard. That's their life. That's how they live. That's not pedophilia to them. That's not pedophilia to them. So then who am I to go down there and talk about pedophiles when in their conscience, that's not what it is. See, so for different cultures, man, it's different standards. And to me, that tells us most of this stuff ain't even really pedophilia. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, is pedophilia really just breaking the law about these sex problems? Because I can go to another country and it's the standard. So it's just a matter of breaking the law, I guess. You go to Brazil, 14, you can have sex with a 14-year-old girl. So, but here you get arrested. So is it a matter of breaking the law that makes you a pedophile? Because the standards are different everywhere. The psychology is different everywhere. So then, once you see America contradicted their own standard, then it's over. You know, you can't talk about nothing anymore. That's basically how I feel. You know, you can't talk about it no more, bro, because once you contradict your own standard that you was living by, you had us under the impression that you wasn't having sex with no children under 18. That's the impression we was under. Then you look at the standard of the military. Even in the military, they got the age of consent at 16. At 16, they got the age of consent. That's the age of consent in the military. Right? So if you join the military, the age of consent is 16 in the military for all military personnel. All military personnel can have sex with 16-year-old girls and boys. That's the American military. Then you go to the Florida. In the state of Florida, it's 18. The whole state of Florida is 18. So imagine people trying to judge you. You know what I'm saying? When even in the military, they can have sex with 16-year-old girls right now. You can look it up right now. Even the military. Yeah, so you know, man, that's just why, I don't know. That's why I let ignorance be bliss, because I know you either educated or you're not about this subject. Now think about it now. Let's keep it real. We know how most Americans, we dropped out, whether we be black or white. I dropped out of school too. So we're not really that educated, man. It's the truth. You know how many people didn't never go back to school and get a GED? I went back to school and got a GED. That's how I know I'm a competent person. Because I'm just keeping it real, because a retarded person can't go and get a GED, buddy. No. Not certified retarded. I went to a community college on my own and decided to get a GED for just being a man and being able to have that equivalent so that I can get better jobs and stuff like that. That's basically what it was. Or if I wanted to go to Bible college, I could have went to Bible college. And once I got a GED, I could go to Bible college and everything like that. And college, period. I can go to college. But if you don't got no GED, you can't even go to college. They ain't even gonna waste no time. It is a waste of time. Think about it. You might want to be in college, but come on, you playing yourself if you ain't got no GED. You playing yourself. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of times, man, you know, we gotta be careful, man. Like let this be understood, man. We can't let everybody judge everything, bro. Like, you could have street credibility, you could be a gangster, even military, you know, police, whatever. But that does not mean that you have an IQ high enough to judge these situations. I genuinely, and that's not being cruel, that's being factual about IQ. See, people, when people talk about IQ is something you have or you don't have. Now, you might have other smarts around IQ, like street wisdom, right? But then there's overall IQ about issues and understanding issues. And when you bring people out here that either have a low IQ or have no high school diploma, and it's more than people want to acknowledge, bro. It's more than people want to acknowledge that get to pass judgment, especially as a black man. It's more than you want to acknowledge that don't have no high school diploma and have a low IQ. Might have street wisdom, but street wisdom ain't gonna be everything, because see, that's what people gonna try to use, intuition. Intuition ain't gonna win this war. Intellect is gonna win. Intellect. Where you realize, education and intellect, where you realize besides all your intuition, these people marry children. The only way you're gonna know that is not by intuition. You're gonna know that by your education. So then once you are educated, your intuition has to be on the back burner to the information of your education. Once you realize they marrying children, we don't care about no intuition, because you're educated to realize this whole environment is sexualizing children. So what does reading this one guy mean to anybody? Once you realize we've been sexualizing children this whole time as a community, what does it mean for you to test this dude over and over again? It means nothing. But that's the difference between education and ignorance. Once I'm educated, I don't feel no need to read nobody about these children, because I'm educated. I'm too educated. But see, none of us was. A lot of us didn't get our full education. I can say I went back and got my GED. So, and a lot of people, listen, you can't be a retarded person and go get that. I'm not saying, most people esteem me as smart anyway. But for anybody that just, for some reason, feel differently, I proved my competency by going back and get my GED. It's not as easy as you think. Oh, it's not. Oh, it's not. You might think so. Just because it's called GED, you gotta have all. Basically, this is what a GED is. You go to school and get tested. Nothing but tested. That's it. You don't got no little light work, little stuff, no, it's no light work. When you go get a GED at a community college, it's test after test after test, and then you ain't got nobody to lean on. You can't get passed through because they like you, because they don't get to know you, because you're getting nothing. You meet people and it's a test, and that's it. You met this woman and all you did was a test. That's it. She ain't gonna show you no favor. None. So, you know, I've been through it all, man. I went back and got my GED on my own. Nobody helped me. I went and got the GED book and read that GED book, ordered pizza and ate, and ordered pizza and ate, and read that book. And I learned everything in that book for myself. I self-taught myself. That's how you know I'm competent. I got the book, read the GED book, and aced the test, got my GED equivalent. Now I can always go back and pull them records from CPCC down in Charlotte. I can always pull those records and get proof of getting my GED. So I proved my competency. You can go check in with the GED. Okay, because it's even harder to go back to school after you ain't been to school for a long time. It's not easy. It's not an easy task. That's what someone told me, and I think the best respect I got from getting my GED is like, man, I respect that because it's hard to go back to school after you are grown. You're a grown man. And you ain't been studying no algebra and fractions and decimals and percentages and all of that stuff. History, science. I ain't been thinking about none of that. Working jobs, but nevertheless not thinking about no fractions and algebra and all. I had to do all of that. And there was nobody to lean on. Meaning I either failed or I passed. And I got my GED in less than 4 months. I got my GED in like 4 months, buddy. Cause I went in and just aced. I ain't waste no time. See, they can't tell you, well, you ain't been here in 10 weeks. You can take time off. And that's what some people do, and they never go back. I stayed in school like it was a semester. And that's why I got it done in like 3 months. 3-4 months. 3 and 4 months, I got it all done. Yep. Some people go up there and play around with it, go back, especially when you ain't got to be up there. And they'll go up there for 2 months and then fall off for about 6 months and go back and do some more. And then just set it up where they got the test, and they might go back 3 months later and all kind of little stuff. But now I know I could go back to school if I wanted to. You know what I'm saying? Because I got that GED. So, so you're not talking to somebody who didn't go back to school and things like that. Like I'm just some delinquent. You know what I'm saying? And, I educated myself just for my own benefit. And nobody pushed me to do it. I ain't had no family pushing me to do it. Nobody, my wife, nobody. I was married at the time when I did it. When I went and got my GED, I was married. I was legally married. And I was separated from my wife. And she was in Florida and I was in North Carolina. So while I was up there for 3-4 months, I got my GED while I was separated from my wife. So I was still doing stuff. Like, I ain't lose my mind when I wasn't with my woman. I went and did other stuff. Throughout my marriage, I can say I wasn't just sitting there crying a river, waiting for her to come back to me, waiting to just have sex with this person and be with this person. And I went and got, when I was separated from my woman, I went and got my GED. And my point is, though, bringing up education is, it's some people that are not educated, bro, and they should not be judging these situations. We gotta let people sit back and watch. Because how I'm going to judge it is, ain't no way in the world you and your brother going to be cool for all that time. But then when he get mad about his wife, he can try to dig up something on you. I don't care if it's true or not. That's what education going to say. Education going to say, I don't care if it's true or not. See, a person that's not educated is just going to think, oh, the stuff. But you're not educated. Your mind ain't screwed on with education. See, some people could be smart even, but your mind is not screwed on with education. Your mind is not screwed on with understanding until you properly Align yourself with information and education. Until then, your mind is just all over the place. You gonna go by the streets, a little bit of the streets, a little bit of the police, a little bit of that. I educate police, bro. I've educated the police, which means when I say I've educated the police, I've actually come to the police, right, and told them about their country marrying children, which you would expect the police that is a law enforcement to know these laws. They didn't even know it. I've educated policemen. That's what kind of man is before you. And that's why God is not going to allow it. He's not going to allow me to be played with. It's because, I'm the same person to educate policemen. Why some of these women out here that's supposed to be community watch, you will never educate the police of America in your lifetime. You're not going to do it. I've done that. I can tell you, I have educated policemen that did not know their country was marrying children. And you know what they thought? We know what they said. Thank you for this information. That's what I expect people to say. Because I know you don't know this. I know you don't know this information. So I expect you in your right mind to be grateful. I expect you to be grateful. But see what we are? Well, people just sitting around. See, even the police thank me for the information. Even the police. That's why I don't take anything off of. I don't take anything off of people that are not educated, bro. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. I'm too educated. I educate police. I look police right in their face. How could I be a person that's a predator? Who? See, a dumb person gonna think I do all of that and I still got something to hide. You see what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about with these so smart but stupid people. You're so smart, you're stupid, that you can't see real life as it is. What's the odds that this person is looking right in the face of policemen and educating policemen, but he gonna go and sexualize children himself? What's the odds that that's gonna happen? What's the odds somebody is that evil? What's the odds? What's the odds that somebody that is as evil to educate the police about child marriage, but he over here fantasizing about people's children? But he over here fantasizing about people, old people and stuff. That's just unreasonable, where it's just unreasonable. So, that's cartoon people, bro. See, I'm not so smart, I'm stupid. See, I learned the smartest people are not so smart, they're stupid, where I'm just giving all the right answers, but I don't understand the sweet spot of life to what it really, really is. And that's where you bring in discernment, right? You understand discernment and you have understanding, good understanding. And some people are smart, but they don't have good understanding, bro. They don't, man. That's why I see, even if people are smart, that's not gonna cut it either. They can't be smart retarded. They smart retarded, it ain't gonna work. They can't be smart retarded, bro. That's real. They could be smart, but retarded. Where, you just keep giving these answers, but you're not smart enough to really know real life. What it really could be. What it really is most likely. And what it really is most likely is if somebody's educating the police, that person ain't no sex predator, bro. You just so smart, you stupid. You keep going on and on and on, trying to figure this person out. And that's a type of retardation to me. It is. Because retardation by definition means something that does not progress. In order for you to be classified as retarded, literally, you have to not be a progressive person, which means you don't progress. So anything that's not progressive is retarded. Now look at how many things is not progressive. Our culture, American culture, black ignorance, black culture. I could say all of that is retarded because it's not progressive. It's not progressing. It's doing the same thing. It's the same ignorance. So once again, the real definition of retardation is something that does not progress. I've always progressed. I always progress. I'm always progressing. Progressing enough to educate your country on you marrying children and y'all didn't know it. Progressing enough to educate everybody on child marriage and y'all didn't know. I can say you're retarded, non-progressive about understanding what your country is doing to children. When the last time y'all made child marriage laws was when Donald Trump was in office the first term, and the whole American community said nothing about it. So you're back there before with the first term with Trump, where as far as understanding what these people doing towards children, when they passed laws to marry children, the first term Trump was in office. You're back there as far as your education. I'm up here progressing. But you're back there where y'all didn't even know y'all passed child marriage laws when Donald Trump was the president the first time. You didn't know, did you? Okay, so technically, as far as these situations with children, the well-being of children, you're non-progressive. You're a type of retarded. See how easy it is? That's why you have to always be progressive. The best men, the best go-getters, the best alpha males remain progressive no matter what. As far as education and everything, information. Every year is a chance to be progressive. Every year you should be reading a different book. It don't have to be something that's boring, something that you are interested in. But every year you should be reading a different book of your life. You shouldn't be going years and years without reading any books. Or if you want to use it, if you do ebooks on your phone, you can do that too. But every year you should be reading a book, so to speak. How many people go years and years without reading books? You're not progressive as you think you are. You're supposed to be progressive. The more progressive you are, the more you understand human nature and you understand exactly what's going on. That's why when it comes to what you call pedophilia, I'm just too educated. I know what they're doing in the rest of the world. I know what they're doing here in America. Where even under the military, when you join the military, under the UCMJ program, which stands for Uniform Code of Military Justice, under this program, it dictates the age of consent for all military personnel, and they set the military personnel age of consent for them at 16 years old, which means all military personnel can have sex with 16-year-old girls. They have their own age of consent, not one to comply to in the state that they're stationed or based. They have their own age of consent for them. No matter where they're stationed, no matter where they're stationed. Okay? And that age is 16 years old. So imagine people calling me retarded when I know about your own country. Your military is marrying, having sex with 16-year-old girls and boys. At least they allow them to. That's their way of covering their bases, just in case when people go outside the country and they see all these little young girls and they might make a mistake. That's how they cover their bases, by not putting it at 18, so they won't be liable for military personnel when they're stationed somewhere else having sex with these 16-year-old girls and boys. This is how they cover their bases. This is how they cover themselves legally. That's what I believe. That's the reason why they did it. So if they go across seas, okay, the age of consent is 16. That's reasonable, they feel. Where if you out here and you see something you like in these other countries, you ain't gonna bring no liability back on us because you had sex with a little 16, 17-year-old girl. Because you were stationed over in Germany, or you were stationed over in South America somewhere, or you were stationed over in Africa, and so they give you that little wiggle room so that I believe so that you're not bringing any liabilities back to the military government, to the military or the government. Okay? See, you're not educated. And some people see here in America, people look at education as like eating spinach. Eating canned spinach. Most kids don't like to eat canned spinach because their parents didn't know how to jazz it up. It's a certain way to jazz it up. But if your parents didn't know how to jazz up spinach, then you probably don't like it, right? You got to jazz it up. And so some kids grow up acting like education is bad, like spinach, eating spinach. And so by the time you get out of school, you don't even read books. You don't do nothing. You got people like that. And some people don't think it matters until you encounter life. And you realize, ooh, I think education matters. It saved my life. See, me being educated, I wasn't gonna die, but it made it a lot easier for my life. Once I knew what they was doing in this country, ain't no way in the world you finna tell me about no pedophilia. And they marrying children. So what did that? What set me free from the judgment of this country? Education. See, you understand the power of education when you live long enough. When you live long enough, education feeds you, literally. Remember the little nerd in school? Now he's cool, because he got the girl, he got the car, he got the house, he got everything. We was cool in school, but now we broke. Because we decided to be cool. We decided to be the cool kid, the cool cat. All of us fell for it, including me. Now, that little scrawny kid in school, he's the man. He got the woman of his dreams. He's living the dream, literally. He's in a world totally different from me and yours. He's in a world different from me and you. He got everything. Now he looks cool to real grown women. To us, we thought he was we thought he was a chump in school, right? But now, he the man. He got it going on by everybody's standard. What did it for him? He went to school and got education. See, I didn't have parents that told me about the power of education. I didn't. I'm gonna keep it real. I don't remember any significant conversations about education. I don't. And see, some black parents might feel ain't no need to talk about it because we ain't got the money. Simple-minded, man, where some kids can get grants, some bright kids can get grants and don't have to rely on their parents' money. Some kids can get grants, but see, if you got parents that's just unsophisticated, that's the word I'm gonna use. If you got unsophisticated parents, they'll think, well, we ain't got no money, so ain't no need to talk about school. Or they might see that you're struggling a little bit in school and think, well, ain't no need to talk about school because they're kind of struggling. Most of our parents didn't tell us about school. I didn't live with my real dad. My real dad would have told me because he went to college for himself a little bit. He did a little bit of college himself. But I come from a broken home where my dad was not there. I lived with my stepdad and he was just a man. See, when you got somebody that got a trade, that's kind of the worst. Sometimes that could be the worst kind of father. Because my stepdad had a trade of being a mechanic. So a mechanic really ain't going to speak about education because they going to feel like their worldview is I can make money without education. I made all this money without education. I'm doing good without it. That's their worldview. I didn't have to go to school. I'm doing great. Especially a mechanic. You can make money doing odd jobs and the job you work at. A real good mechanic that know what he's doing, he makes money in the family, out in the city, and at his job. 3 different outcomes, 3 different incomes. The family, the job, and the city. Word of mouth, all that. So I seen my stepdad make money, odd jobs here and there, everywhere, all of my life, because he was a mechanic, right? So I seen that all my life, him just making doing odd jobs, making money, and still going back and forth to work on top of that. But he never was a man that was educated. He never was educated by no stretch of the imagination. Educated on what he wants to be educated. He wasn't stupid, but he was educated on what he wants to be educated on. And so, ironically, he wasn't educated on education. And he didn't teach that. He didn't imply it or nothing. He just implied me using my strength, physical strength, to get money. Which that's what most black men gonna do. It's tell you to use your body to go get money. He seen how strong I was physically. He said I should have just used my body, basically. But education is gonna get you the real money, not even your physical body. Your physical body ain't gonna get you the real money, man. See, I know now that you how you talk to kids about money, education is you have to tell them this is how you gonna get money. Period. What kind of life you want to live? Okay, in order for you to live that life, you got to say this over and over again too. Not like no bird and the bees talk. You got to say this over. You got to insinuate this and imply this over and over and again to your kids in various different ways. You can't tell them one time either. You got to keep showing them, keep giving them examples, show them other people that's got education, and show them. See that person? See why he got all of that? Because he's educated. You got to keep putting it in their head. I didn't have anybody doing that. So if I would have had somebody telling me, a kid that already don't like education, just brought up in American culture, we couldn't stand it. We barely, you can count on both hands how many good teachers we had. Most of the teachers wasn't no good, but I did have some good teachers. But all of them wasn't no good. That's another issue. All the teachers were not bright to learn how to make education interesting and exciting for kids. It's a talent. To be a teacher is a talent. That's a talent. Some teachers are no good. They just, anybody can get up there and tell you to do this, and here's your homework. But a great teacher knows how to make you interested in the subject and make it exciting, right? And some people are not gifted to do that. So many of us, you can count on both hands how many good teachers you really had, talented teachers you had. I had talented teachers, a couple of them, but I can count them on both hands. If I was just told that education is money, not educate, go and get your education. Just a kid gonna think, I don't want to do that. And you're a child. You really don't know that. You thinking, well, and later on in life, I just can go get a job and get money. No, you can't. Not good money. You're gonna be doing mediocre jobs, average jobs. That's it. You ain't gonna make. How you gonna make a six figure? How you gonna have a 6-figure job working some random job around the way around where you live? So then you're gonna be set up to make nothing, minimum wage. That's how you tell your kids. You don't plow and say work in education. You don't and you don't make them understand why. And that's how most kids and parents do. You just tell them to go get their education. You just tell them to go work, and they don't even really know why. It's not as obvious as you think. Not to kids, not to young people. You gotta show them that if you don't work, if you don't get your education or a trade, either one. But if you really want some serious money, a trade ain't even what you want to do. Not even a trade. Black people either gonna get a trade or go to college. That's what we tell our family. Go to get a trade. When I was young, in my early 20s, people talked to me about a trade. Get any kind of trade, right? You either get a trade or you go to school. Okay? If you get a trade, I'm going to be honest, the average trade is not going to give you this luxurious life. In fact, you're probably going to be working very hard with a trade specifically. Yeah, you probably most likely are. And, you're not going to live this rich life. Now, if you go to school, the possibilities are endless. You could get all kind of money. And you ain't going to get it No other way in this real world. You ain't nobody gonna hand that to you, and you ain't gonna get it because you work hard. You ain't gonna get that because you a hard worker. I can show you hard workers at Burger King, and they retired from Burger King. They retired from Burger King with no money. How many of our ancestors worked at these jobs out here and got nothing? They got nothing to show for it. All the work they did. That's how it is. Oh, they worked hard, but they ain't got nothing from it. They ain't got nothing to show for it. See, people will say, you know, you when you talk about something you didn't, you ain't got nothing to show for it. But let's talk about all our ancestors that worked so hard, but they ain't got nothing to show for it. All these people that worked all over the years, but for all their hard work, they ain't got nothing to show for it. Same thing. It's the same thing. You arrive at the same place. You arrive at the same place of having nothing to show for it. We all do. You know why? Because we don't go to school and we don't get trades. So it don't matter if, you know, you look at me and I tell you I've been to New York, I've been to California, and you tell me I ain't got nothing to show for it. That's what they'll tell somebody like me that travels all the time. Okay, you went to California, you went to New York, you went to Florida, but you ain't got nothing to show for it, right? Okay, but I can show you the same pattern in with all of us. If we didn't go to school, if we didn't get, whether we traveled or not, if you didn't get no education, you ain't gonna have nothing to show for it. All this hard work you did, you ain't got nothing to show for it. See what I'm saying? Same pattern. Same pattern. Nothing to show for all the hard work. Hard work is not what guarantees success. An idea or an opportunity guarantees success. An idea or an opportunity guarantees success. Hard work that's part of it. But it does not guarantee 100% success. No, it don't. But it's insinuated in our community, if you work hard, you will get success. No, you won't. You can't guarantee nobody that. They have to have an opportunity. They can work hard all their life at McDonald's. It never come up. And never get an opportunity. And McDonald's gonna let you stay there as long as you stupid enough to stay there. Long as you stupid enough to stay there, they gon' and I respect people who work at different jobs like that, but you know what I'm saying? Like, as long as you stay at these kind of jobs, they will work you until you are dead. Especially if you're a good employee. If you're a good employee, they'll work you till you retire. I seen one guy who retired from McDonald's, and he was only a janitor. He did the same thing. And they'll try to make you special, like you're a special person, but you're not making no special money. Okay? They treat you like you're special after you've been there about 10 years, but I'm not making no significant money, man. So a lot of times, man, in our black community, in the American community, people just glad that you got a job, and that's not enough. That's not enough to even get you on your own and live on your own. You can't even live on your own without a significant amount of money. And so we raise slaves. We raise slaves by how we teach each other. If you don't got the brains to go to school, you can have the brains to create something. You could have nobody can stop that. You could have a bright idea, whether you got a low IQ or not, to create something. A grand idea. You might make a slogan. You might make a slogan to catch on or something like that, which you got to get trademarked, and you get a patent on stuff. Ideas. And you ain't have to go to school. You got a great idea. You could go that route. But you have to get your kids understanding. You got to do something. If you don't do nothing, I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen. You're gonna end up at a dead end job. You're gonna end up at a dead end job or a revolving door job where it's like musical chairs. They don't care how they treat the people, because we always can employ somebody else. You see this stack of applications? If you decide to leave, all I gotta do is call one of the best applicants, the most qualified applicants. So I treat you based on that. I treat you like that based on that. That's all you gonna get. It ain't, you know, what other break you gonna get? And it's like, it dawns on you, okay, I'm not gonna get another break. I have to go to school. I have to get a trade or something like that. If you don't get a trade, you don't go to school, you don't have a idea. See, I got ideas. That's my thing. All I need is money. Like they say, you gotta have money to make money. But I got ideas right now that can make me wealthy. Everybody believe in my ideas. I got ideas. I'm one of them dudes. I got ideas that can make me a lot of money. You know, I got more than one. Good, solid ideas that everybody agree with. I done tried it out on people and everybody agree. I got great ideas that can make money. But, you know, and I don't have to work. I'm one of them type of dudes. I'm an inventor. I am an inventor. I invent things. So that's one of my talents. You know, because some people just is not built to be out here physically. And even though we got to do it, you too smart to be limited to just working at McDonald's. You too smart. And you know, sometimes your parents don't even emphasize that enough to even spark your excitement or spark your aspirations. They can see that you smart, but still don't really spark your aspirations. So, you know, that's most of us. That's how most of us was brought up. Yeah. Most of us was brought up where your parents didn't spark your aspirations. They just too busy working and trying to survive. And you know, if they was unsophisticated, then they ain't give you no ideas and things to do to make sure that you live good. See, white people make sure their family live good, because they gonna tell their kids, oh, you gotta go to school, you gotta get out of my house. You know, black people, we let our kids stay at our houses indefinitely. You ain't gotta get out. And especially now these days with the economy, people just let their kids stay home and baby their kids. Well, you ain't gotta go because it's bad out there. Can't you see it now? You ain't gotta go nowhere because it's bad. So, yeah, so, you know, we just have to realize what happened in your life. That's what happened. Most of us had unsophisticated parents. They loved us the best way they could, but they was unsophisticated. And they taught us more unsophistication. They taught us more of that. And it goes on and on and on to every generation. That's what happened. See, if you don't understand that, you'll say, well, why do I think like, why ain't thinking like, you can't raise yourself. Nobody can raise themselves. Even though you got to take responsibility for yourself when you get older, right? But you still wasn't responsible for how you was raised. You couldn't raise yourself. And so all people can do is act like the reason why you didn't get nowhere is because you was stubborn or rebellious. But what about before you even got to that stage? What about before you even became a rebellious teenager? What about that? You wasn't raised right. There's two types of people in the world. Those who are raised right and those who are raised wrong. That's all we got. That's basically what it is. And so when you find people living out of pocket and doing things out of pocket, that's because they wasn't raised right. That's why me and you, somehow, some way, we always make it the right way. You know why? Because we was raised right. It don't mean we wasn't from the hood. We from the hood too. But you proved it. But you also was raised right. And when you're raised right, you know, somehow you find your way, you know, somehow, always, you know, you're going to come to yourself. You know, and so that's basically what we dealing with. That's what we dealing with here. People that's not raised right, people that are raised right. You know, and imagine trying to get two people together that's one raised right and one ain't. Even though I might not have millions of dollars, I'm further along. I'm further along in my understanding of things in the world and how things are than other people, man. You know, because they wasn't raised right. Their parents didn't talk to them. Their parents didn't. Some of us that grew up in the 90s, I barely made it. The reason why I made it is because I became a Christian at a young age and I began to educate myself. That's the only reason. Other than that, I would have been probably a dude with 2, 3 kids, 4 kids by now. I would have been that type of dude. Working somewhere with some pretty but older woman right now. And I would have been with some pretty but older woman with about 3 or 4 kids just working some random place. That would have been me. Because women definitely would have came into my life, even if I was in the streets or whatever. And I would have always found my way with women. But if that makes sense. But I would be probably barely making it, struggling. One of them dudes. If I didn't become a Christian, I would have been struggling, 3, 4 kids, one of them dudes. With a woman. Maybe 2 baby mamas, something like that too. Because I ain't taking nothing off no woman. So I probably would have had 2 or 3 baby mamas, 3, 4 kids, something like that. It's true. It's just how I know. I know that's how I would have been. But I became a Christian, so I abstained from sex for like when I was 18, 19, 20. I didn't have sex with nobody. My last teenage year, I had no sex at all. 19, I didn't have sex with nobody. 20 years old, I didn't have sex with nobody. 21, I didn't have sex. So 19, 20, and 21, I had sex with nobody. 3 years. That's why I really got the real spirituality that I needed. I really got it because I would, you know, some people become Christians, but they dip and dab and, you know, and I'm not judging, you know, but, you know, I abstain from women. That's why I got that purity with God that a lot of people don't have, because I know what it is to not have sex with no women out here. And it wasn't because I didn't like women. It wasn't because of that. It's because I really wanted to please God and wait for a wife. And it wasn't going to be any other circumstance. It wasn't going to be no shaky, fraudulent other circumstance. So I wind up waiting for my wife till I was 22 years old. Then I got married like that. So, you know, that's how it was. But that was 3 years with no woman. 3 years, no woman. You know, and then I got married right into that after that. So, but right now I'm back to not having sex with no woman. It's 1 year, and it's I'm gonna be honest, it's one thing to masturbate, and it's another thing to give your energy to a human and to be sharing your space with a human. And I'm not justifying masturbation, but or anything like that, but it's a difference between that and sharing your energy with another person, and also Add to that, allowing somebody else to come into your space, another spirit, and they might have demons, they might have all kind of stuff, you know. And so I haven't really let nobody in my space for a whole year, and that's kind of why I am the way I am. I feel great about that, and me being a Christian, I'm glad to not let anyone in my space, and just have God in my space. And it's still struggles I got going on, but ultimately I overcome my struggles. I haven't smoked weed in a whole 2 years. I haven't smoked cigarettes in 2 years, so, and I'm not drinking, you know, and I'm glad about that. It's like 10 months without drinking, because I do believe drinking is biblical. It's in the Bible. You don't supposed to get sloppy drunk, you know, crab face drunk, but wine is in the Bible. Drinking is in the Bible. And so we have to be mature enough to acknowledge that and not say ignorantly. It comes back to education. Some people are not educated on the Bible. You just assumed in an ignorant way that alcohol was a sin. That's ignorance. It's in the Bible. Okay, so then I have to come to terms with that through education. You got some people, they Christians, but they not educated. And so over the years, you know how many people preached and said alcohol itself was a sin, and God just sat back and watched them. He still love them. He still love them. Don't get me wrong. See, I've become mature enough to realize these people are still going to heaven. But a lot of them were not what they were supposed to be on earth. They were not educated. Because the bottom line is alcohol is in the Bible. Fermented alcohol, not non-alcoholic stuff, not grape juice, not fermented spirits is in the Bible. Okay? So, you know, whether you decide to not drink or not, that's your prerogative, but you can't because you don't want to drink yourself. You can't sit up and say this is a sin because you struggle with drinking. Because if you have one beer, you're gonna wind up buying 3/5. You know, that's you. That's your struggle, you know, but you can't project that struggle on others who don't have that problem with alcohol. Because I knew for me for sure that I ain't have a problem with alcohol. Nah. That's why, you know, I took a year off to refresh myself and to clear my mind and to refocus, to reboot and reset my drinking, right? Sometimes you got to reset the drinking. You got to reset it, you know, because for some reason, you know, your tolerance might have got higher, you know, and you're going through things and, you know, and you're over drinking, and you have to reset yourself. You have to reset your drinking. You know what I'm saying? It's not that you have to quit. You have to reset it, you know, and just have a year sober. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm doing right now. I got 10 months under my belt. I ain't had no type of alcoholic drinks whatsoever, you know, and I'm glad to say that. But I knew I wasn't an alcoholic. I knew I was drinking for recreational reasons, and it wasn't really something that I struggle with. But see, alcohol can make you look like a fool. It can. It's probably one of the only vices that can make you look like an alcoholic and you're actually not. Literally, you'll be walking around looking like one, but you're not, because it can make a fool out of you. One drink, couple drinks, and you look like a drunk. You look like you've been drinking all your life. So, you know, ain't nobody gonna know the difference. So that's the effect that alcohol can have on you, is where you look like you a drunk out here and you not. You know, I knew I was just drinking recreationally, and I could quit anytime I want. So I proved that, glory to God, and I haven't been drinking in 10 months. So, you know, but for some people it's a struggle. You know, you grew up drinking, you know, that was your main vice. It's a trigger for you. You can't do it in moderation. You can't do a little bit. You have to check yourself. You have to check your psychology, and you have to die to yourself. You have to die to what you want to do. You have to get past your the excessive over drinking that is pleasurable. You know, you got to get past it. The truth is, man, with drinking, if you just slow down and wait a little bit, you still get to the same point that you're trying to get to. But see, with most people that got a high tolerance for alcohol, you drink too fast because you're trying to get that feeling real fast, and you wind up blacking out or worse. So you got to learn, man, that with drinking, it's all about time. Give it time. Have a drink and chill. But a lot of people are not used to that. They want to drink, get another drink, and just keep drinking. And then they black out. That's how it happens. See, with alcohol, it's all about time. If you drink, let's say a fifth over a span of 12 hours, and you break that fifth down to basically 3 parts, and every 4 hours you knock off 1 part of that 3 part of that vodka or whatever you drink, and you're just knocking off another part of 3 parts of that fifth. You're probably gonna be A-okay. But if you drink that fifth in 30 minutes, or let's be reasonable, 4 hours, even 3 hours, that's about right for most people. They could drink a fifth in about 3 hours. Sometimes you might black out. That's what happens. You know, so it's all about time with alcohol. That's what I learned. Now, if you take 12 hours to drink a fifth, which most people ain't gonna take 12 hours, but I'm just saying, you know, you drink 1/3 of it every 4 hours, you're gonna be good. But yeah, I can say honestly, man, I haven't drank in 10 months and I feel great. I don't have no withdrawals, and I don't feel no need to go drink. It'll be right there when I want to drink again, but I'm going to give it a year. I wanted to give it a year, and that's how far I'm going, is a year. A whole year. And after a year, I'm just proceed with caution. I'm just proceed slowly. You know what I'm saying? But I wanted to do that for God. I wanted to do that for God because that's something I wanted to do. I wanted to go a whole year without drinking. And I already feel the reset already. You know, so but people gotta, you know, you gotta get a hold of yourself. Like, you know, I didn't need nobody to sit me down and say, yo, you need to quit drinking. I looked at my own life, and I seen the problems. I seen some situations with my drinking, and I just felt the need to honor something that I was gonna do some time back, which was take a year off from drinking. Give it as a vow to God. Make a vow to God to not drink for a year. So that's what I'm doing, you know. But I'm not saying I ain't gonna never drink again. I'm gonna keep it real. But I reset to where now it's not gonna be excessive. I'm gonna take my time, and because it don't have to be excessive, especially when you got a low tolerance. You know, it don't have to be excessive. Your tolerance get high when you start binging, when you start drinking fast. That's what's gonna take the tolerance up. That's what's gonna take it up. But if you keep it low and take time, it's gonna stay like that. You're gonna have the same effect. But what happens is people are not patient enough, because we usually party. So when you partying and your favorite song come on, I'm gonna tell you what happened to people. This literally happens. When your favorite song come on, you get another shot. Boom. While your song is on, how many shots you took? 3 or 4 shots, didn't you? You took 3 or 4 shots while your favorite song was on. That's what happened. And then now you up. Boom. now you're in the flow, and now you playing something else, and I know how it goes, man. That's usually what happens to people, man. We party with alcohol. When you party with alcohol, that's when your tolerance gets higher, because while you're partying, you're not paying attention to how much you're consuming, because you're excited and you're feeling the feeling, and you're drinking and you're dancing and everything. That's what people do. And you want to get more tipsy because of the song. You want to get more tipsy because of the atmosphere. That's what happens to people. I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking from experience. And but if you take your time and you never ever really binge, then you'll be at that nice sweet spot where you don't have to drink a whole bunch to feel the same feeling. You gotta learn. Some people don't know how to take their tolerance, make it stay low. You could keep a low tolerance and still have the same effects. But what people do is they party, and then that's how the tolerance gets higher. Through partying, because you're not paying attention. You're hanging out with people, you're drinking with people, especially when it's another person. You drinking. You're not paying attention. Now your tolerance is higher. Now it takes more to get you drunk. You know what I mean? Like, and with alcohol, it's a very tricky place, because if you go back to it, everybody got a level that they know they can get on. That highest level of alcohol, right? What happens with a heavy drinker is you think you're going to just get back to your level. And your body is not ready. Your tolerance is not ready. And you might make a mistake. With alcohol, is dangerous, because you could make a mistake and not eat enough, just because you ain't eat enough. And you try to get on your main level, where you might take 8, 9, 10 shots. Boom. 8, 9, 10 shots, but you ain't had nothing on your stomach. So whether that's your level or not, your body gonna respond differently. Your body gonna respond differently because of all that alcohol, and you ain't really got nothing on your stomach. Your body ain't gonna say, well, oh, I know this is the level. The body gonna say, oh, I needed this to get on that level. I needed this food, this water to get on this level, and you ain't give it to me. So you gotta drink water. You gotta eat food when you drink, and a lot of people don't do that. It's an art to drinking, man, and you gotta know what you're doing. You gotta drink it on good meals. You gotta eat and drink. Eat before you drink, and eat while you're drinking, and drink water while you're drinking, and before you're drinking. Before you start drinking, you drink water. And that's how I've always stayed afloat. No pun intended. I've always drunk water. No matter how much alcohol I drink, I always drink water. I always do. So, that's how I stay afloat. That's why I knew it wasn't a problem for me. I knew it wasn't no problem for me, man, to stop drinking. I knew I ain't have a problem with drinking. Smoking cigarettes. Smoking was my vice. You know what I'm saying? I used to smoke cigarettes, Black and Milds, everything like that. And I quit smoking. I ain't smoked in 2 years. This is the longest I've been without smoking in 17 years. So I'm doing good with that. But I was more of a smoker, and I used to drink a little bit. And then when I got older and I could buy my own alcohol, I started buying wine, and I went from there. But alcohol really wasn't my vice growing up. I think growing up determines how you process alcohol in your life. I drank, but I had to smoke and drink. In order to drink, I had to smoke weed too when I was young. Every once in a while I might just drink to drink, but it didn't feel comfortable. It didn't feel good to me if I wasn't smoking and drinking. So usually that was my lifestyle as a teenager. So I didn't really, have a real problem with alcohol. I kept it at bay. It made sense. I might have a couple beers. I might get a fifth or a pint or drink like that. And but the main thing is smoking weed. So So that's why I knew myself. I know my psychology. I know I like alcohol's. It can be, if it's done right, it can be a good experience, but it still is not something that is my true vice. It's not my true. People will be surprised to hear that, but it's really not. That's why I knew I didn't have a problem with it. I knew I could put it down when I wanted to, and I proved that. I knew it didn't have the hold on me that people thought it did. I was just having mishaps. I was making mistakes. I was overdosing. You know what I'm saying? Basically. And overdosing don't mean you have a problem. I even seen a commercial that said something like, you don't have to be, alcohol don't have to have a hold on you for it to be a problem. And that's very true. I mean, some people can drink a handful of times and destroy their life. Didn't know what they was doing. That's how deadly alcohol is. Alcohol is not a game. It'll always be more dangerous than drugs. Always. Always, to me. Because people gonna take more chances with alcohol, and they're gonna be riding around here drinking and riding around. Now, have I ever smoked weed and drove a car? I have. I have before. I'm not gonna lie. I have smoked weed and drove a car before. But to me, weed is different because I'm gonna be on point. Like, yeah, let's do this right. Yeah, let me stop here. I'm gonna slow it down a little bit before. I'm gonna slow it down a little bit before I get to that stop sign. Yeah, there we go. Easy. I'm gonna do it easy. You just chilling and coasting. Like, weed make you like, but if you smoke too much, your reflex is gonna be off, and that's how you can have an accident with smoking weed. Even that's how people sleep on weed, because your reflex when you real high now, you might be like, oh, you might just turn around, turn your head, and there's a car. Like, oh man, too late. So you can get in that dream state with weed when you ain't really looking around. Don't be listening to some good music. But I can say I have smoked weed and drove a car before, and nothing happened. I didn't get no DUI, nothing, because if you at the right spot with weed, and I'm not condoning it, you're gonna be more careful. You're gonna be a little bit more careful, you know. You're gonna be more careful. So, like me, I was like that. I was careful, just driving. You know what I'm saying? Making sure I got, just being a little extra careful. You know, that's how weed will have you. Like, if you're at the right spot, you're gonna be extra careful. But alcohol, I ain't never been drunk driving around. I ain't never been that arrogant. It's not a game. You know what I mean? I ain't never been that arrogant where I've been tipsy and saucy and then I want to get in the car and ride. Nah. I ain't never been that person, because it's too dangerous. It's too dangerous. It's way too dangerous. Because, alcohol is another thing. You're going to lose the reflex. That reflex is what's going to get you. Because you drunk. Think about when you walking when you drunk. Reflex is what's off. It's the slowest thing. You're trying to get something, you move, you barely moving to get it. You try to pick up something, when you're really drunk, you barely getting it. So how you gonna drive a car, all these fast cars everywhere, you drunk? See, I just guess I understood myself throughout, in and out, like far as how high I am and what certain things do to me, certain intoxicants do to me, and I know driving a car drunk is not something I'm gonna do. And see, that's why people be dead. Now, a little bit tipsy, saucy. See, this is where the line is drawn. See, this is how people. But I don't condone that, man. I will never condone that, man, because you can't be safe enough. And that's just me, and I proved that with my life. I ain't never rolled around drinking. I get to my designated spot, and that's where I'm gonna drink at. That's how I move. I'm wherever I'm gonna get. Like, for example, I went to a party for like 4th of July, and one year, and of course I was smoking, of course I was drinking and everything like that. I wasn't sober when I got back in the car. And the truth is, half of us are never sober getting back in the car. You can't chill over somebody's house till you But that's the real reason sometimes people let you chill for a little bit so you can get the alcohol down. You know what I mean? Now you get older, you realize that that's why everybody lingering around the late at night. Still high, still tipsy, still faded. Then they want to drink some more, and then there you go. Leaving to about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, but I that night I had been drinking, I was smoking, I was tipsy, but I got home good by myself. You know what I'm saying? I think a person that this is just my opinion. A person that grow up as a weed smoker is gonna be more careful when they drive a car than a person that's a drinker. A drinker gonna be charged up and bouncing around and a little more arrogant, like this tough guy arrogance. You know what I'm saying? But a weed smoker gonna be careful. Hey, hold up, everything good? Hi. Oh, hold up. Let me reverse it. Hold on. Put my foot on the brake. I heard something back there. What's that? A weed smoker gonna be extra careful. You know, but like a drinker is gonna can have that arrogance. Like, yeah, man, come on, I got this, man. Come on, man. Like that. See, I done been arrogant as a drinker too, but I haven't been arrogant enough to drive no car. I ain't been arrogant enough to get in no car and drive a car while I'm drunk. Nah. 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 Nope. But I can see how it happens. You get saucy. Next thing you know, you got a car. You feeling yourself. The car you being tipsy with the car is what's gonna do it. You're gonna be feeling the car like, yeah, I got a car. Let me get in my car. Tipsy like, yeah, I ain't no bum. Let me get in my car. Hey, you gonna be tipsy. I ain't no bum. Let me get in my car right quick. You see this flashy car I got? Your car gonna look better when you're probably drunk. You got a big old truck. Man, look at my truck. Let me get on in here. That's how it happened. Think about it. You wanna coast out. You wanna feel the vibe. You know, riding around. That's what's gonna get you right there, man. See, alcohol is still the worst. The worst when it comes to any intoxicant. It's hands down. It is the worst. It is the worst, bro. It will always be. It will always be. Ain't no drug gonna ever come and take the title from the damage that alcohol do. It's nothing. No drug is gonna be ever made to do what alcohol do to the community. Never. It never, man. Because it affects everybody. It affects every walk of life. These doctors, everybody. These celebrities, everybody drink. The demons of alcohol gonna look at you like, you don't drink, everybody drink. Everybody. Most people gonna have a little drink during the holidays and all of that. Especially on Christmas, you know, black families gonna have a little brandy or something like that. Gonna have a little brandy. Listen to some oldies, you know. Everybody gonna drink. Now smoking weed, you know, old people ain't gonna smoke weed. Old people drink a little bit too on the holiday. Yeah, put a little bit in my eggnog. Put a little bit in my eggnog. Put a little bit of brandy in my eggnog. Hey, that's real. That's what the old school gonna do. Put a little bit of E&J. Put that Erkin jerk in my eggnog. That E&J. What's up? Put a little bit of that Erkin jerk in my eggnog. That's what people gonna do.
Anybody want to do that?
Yeah, so, you know.
Dear God Almighty, what's next Sunday?
Yeah, you know, But with drugs, everybody ain't gonna do. Sometimes people gonna, which weed, the best weed days are behind most people. Like me, I probably ain't gonna ever, I know I ain't gonna smoke weed no more. I've been free too long. 2 years? 2 years? No. I ain't smoking weed no more. I ain't smoking weed no more. You know. Yeah, so no weed, no alcohol for a whole year. Oh. But yeah, everybody drink. That's why if you pay attention, everybody. Most average American families, they drink. Now people got their vices, which ones they do and they don't do. Like some people drink beer, and some people drink wine, and some people drink liquor. Me, I'm a liquor drinker, and I drink wine too. Beer, I only drink beer when I can't afford liquor. That's the only reason I would drink beer. And maybe if it's just if like in the case of a Super Bowl, something like that. And now I understand why people drink beer instead of liquor. Because you know why? I never got this till I got older. You know why people drink beer instead of liquor during the Super Bowl? So you don't pass out. Cause if you drink liquor watching the Super Bowl, you can do it now. Don't get me wrong. People do it. But when you drinking liquor particularly, and for real liquor drinkers, you gonna know this. You are going to be less attentive to the game. The game gonna become like a blur if you get really tipsy. It's gonna get really now beer, you're gonna be more into it. You're gonna be more into the game, you know what I'm saying? You ain't really that tipsy. You just right. But if you drink wine or liquor watching the game, it's gonna be a blur. I done it many times. Even though you're looking at it, you're not really as attentive as you need to really get every point, watch everything. Nah. That's why some people don't want to be that tipsy. They want to pay attention. Like, I don't want to be that drunk. So that's why people drink beer during the game. You know what I'm saying? I just realized that. Because everybody drinking liquor, we gonna be passed out. Especially lightweights. If a lightweight gonna pass out drinking liquor watching the game. Man, let me tell you something. Let me tell you a true story. So like, I was here in New York, right? And so it was these dudes that was into politics. They kind of basically was gang stalkers or whatever, right? And like, so I befriended these dudes, and I kind of was skeptical. I kind of knew something iffy about it, but it wasn't enough to do nothing to me. Obviously, you can see me. I'm here now. I knew if it was gang stalkers, it wasn't nothing that was gonna bother me. And because they started to see things my way anyway. And I knew that for sure. For one, the main one, I knew he was seeing things my way anyway. But anyway, this person was more of a weed smoker than a drinker. This person drank beer. Me, I'm a liquor drinker. I can drink a pint by myself easy, with no problem. So I'm a liquor drinker, he not. So we hanging out, I ain't got nothing but a pint. I drink pints by myself. To the head, within 2 hours? Something like that. About an hour and a half on a good night. And yeah, about 2 hours, something like that. About that, almost 2 hours. I would say for a pint for me, just walking, just chilling. About well, maybe a little less than that. About an hour and a half, something like that, maybe. About an hour and a half, something like that. But anyway, I shared a pint with one guy. This guy was leaning over and like he was on heroin and dope, man. He was like leaning over, passing out. I'm like the only one awake. They both was leaning. I was like with two dudes. These dudes was older than me, both of them. I drank dudes under the table. I didn't try. But I made mistakes myself. But I ain't never, like off a pint, I ain't gonna pass out off no pint. They was nodding off and leaning. I'm like, off a pint? I would be like that maybe off of maybe 2/5 of vodka, like that. So I got a liquor personality. You got different personalities. I got a liquor personality. Like that's why God didn't want me drinking in here when I came to New York, because he already knew the gang stalking and everything I was gonna go through. I can't be drunk and high on liquor and dealing with gang stalkers. Cause I'm either gonna fight or pull my weapons. So God knew a liquor drinker, when it comes to conflict, is a whole different animal. You fall out with somebody while they drunk on liquor, it's not a good idea, bro. It's not a good idea. So then I basically began to train myself. Well, I put it like this: psychologically, your thought patterns is gonna be like what you used to, what level you on. I'm a liquor drinker. I'm used to drinking liquor. So my thought patterns come along those lines when it comes to challenges and things like that, if that makes sense. And when I confront things and confront people and things like that and whatever, because your mind is used to thinking on those levels, if that makes sense. So a beer drinker, some people drink nothing but beer. They get a whole bunch of it. They got plenty of money. They could go get liquor, but they can't handle it. They can't handle liquor. I can handle liquor. Perfect example. I was a real alcoholic that's dangerous to themselves can't live in an apartment by themselves, because you're gonna overdrink and alcohol poison and kill yourself. I had a liquor store right across the street from me. I could look outside and see the door of the liquor store, and I survived because I ain't have no mishaps. They ain't never called an ambulance. I ain't never like pass out in the public or something. And so I can handle my liquor. I can handle it. No, I'm like I said, I'm a liquor drinker, but some people drink wine. Wine is more of a cool, laid back, but the more you drink, you get tipsy. The more wine becomes like liquor, basically. And the more you drink about 2 or 3 bottles, them big bottles, I can drink one of them by myself. The real big bottles of wine, you got the slim, everybody know the skinny bottles and the big bottles. I could drink one of the big bottles of Chardonnay by myself. That's about what, I think about 3 big full 8-ounce glasses. I think something like that. It might be 4 or 5. But it's about 5 glasses of 8 ounces. Something like that. No more than that. It ain't 10 glasses. It's about 4 or 5 glasses of 4 or 5 glasses of 8 ounce, 4 or 5 8-ounce glasses. I could drink one of those. I done it on a good night. But I knew I ain't had no problem with alcohol. I ain't had no problem with alcohol. And so, but I know my haters was thinking I did. That's a helpless drunk. I guarantee that's probably what they said. That's a pathetic drunk. Because I done blacked out in public. I done fell out, blacked out, and I'm not proud of that. But I have. I blacked out in public, done fell down in public. Woke up at home. Don't know how I got home. I done blacked out and ended up in the hospital. I don't know how I got to the hospital. And when people see all of that, they gonna think that's a pathetic drunk. But I wasn't. I just was. With alcohol, you have mishaps. You can make one bad decision and overdrink a little bit and look like you've been drinking, like you a wino. People will walk away thinking, yo, this kid is a wino, dude. Yo, he needs to stop drinking. I know people thought that. I remember one day, this one white girl saw me on the block. I was panhandling. I was panhandling on the road, on the side of the road. When I say the block, just outside or whatever. You know what I mean? So, I'm panhandling. She see me out there. She say, you want to go to AA with me? She was a pretty young woman. But she thought I needed to go to AA. I think I might have been tipsy that day, but she thought I needed to go to AA. But I didn't. See, some people think that alcohol, once you go to a certain level, you always gonna have an addiction. I don't believe that. I believe it's psychological. I believe that alcohol is a safe place for a lot of people. When you drink, you get in this zone as an American. You start listening to your playlist. Everybody got their little playlist. You turn up, you start drinking your drinks, and you listen to your playlist. It's a safe place. It's a place that's yours. Because alcohol works that differently than other drugs. Even though it's a downer, a depressant, honestly, for most people, it does not work like that. To me, when I drink, I forget about everything. If I'm going through drama, if I drink, I ain't gonna be worried about that. But that's how I'm wired. You might be wired where alcohol you used it to get past hard times and things like that, right? I drunk alcohol to have a good time. So I always see it as a good time no matter what I'm going through. So if I drink, I'm not going to be thinking about whatever I'm going through. Now, some people are different, but it just dumbs down everything when you're drinking. That's why I believe smart people do drink. Because if you're smart, sometimes you need to turn your mind off, right? And so when you drink, your mind dumbs down to where you're not really thinking as much. That's why I do believe smart people, once they realize alcohol, a smart person, a lot of smart people do drink. Because it turns your mind off. You get a break from your mind. If you smoke weed, your mind gonna spike. It's like dull versus spike. When you drink alcohol, you dull down. Like, ooh, you just chilling. You ain't really trying to think about nothing too deep. I ain't never been drunk and trying to think about something too deep. Nope. Now, when you smoke weed, your mind gonna go out all into the environment. You gonna think about people down the block that probably could rob you. You gonna think about people probably sitting back plotting on you. That's what your mind gonna do when you smoke weed, depending on what life you come from. Now, if you don't come from the streets, you ain't gonna think that, but if you smoke, but then again, you know, if you got problems in your family, you gonna be, if you from the suburbs and you got problems, you gonna be thinking about them problems in your family. You gonna be thinking about people that tried you in your family or whatever, and you smoking weed. But if you drink, you ain't gonna care about that stuff. That's the Bible says, let a man drink strong drink and remember his poverty no more. You can go look it up for yourself. The Bible says, the Holy Bible says, let a poor man drink strong drink and remember his poverty no more. In order for him not to remember his poverty, he has to be tipsy. Not crap faced drunk, but he gotta be altered in order to forget his poverty. He gotta be a little intoxicated. So that's like how alcohol affect me, and that's what I like. If I want, like, if the Bible tells me to drink as a poor man to forget my poverty, because when you tipsy, anybody on the street gonna tell you this. If you've been homeless and you've been tipsy on the street, when you got tipsy, all you could see was in front of you, the block. That's it. Everything narrows in into the block, and you ain't thinking about nothing else and nobody else. You partying on that block or whatever, and that's it. You ain't, whatever the scene is, that's all you see. When you get really tipsy, saucy, all you see is the scene. That's it. You zero in on the scene. Your whole mind closes in on the scene. You don't think about the whole world when you tipsy. No. Weed, you could. With weed and different drugs, you worried about all the world and everything and all the wars in the world, and you get tipsy, you ain't thinking about none of that stuff, man. So, for me, I can't see how people can even smoke weed these days. Because to me, it don't make sense, because times are too crazy. You're going to be thinking about all this stuff, all kind of crazy stuff. I know how, I smoke weed too long not to know how it affect people. You're going to be tender-hearted, tender-minded, think about all the mistakes you made, all the stuff you done, paranoid about the stuff you done, all the stuff, all that kind of stuff. You're going to be thinking like that. You drink alcohol, you don't even care. And then you're going to pass out and go to sleep real good. Weed will make you go to sleep good if you smoke a lot. But alcohol definitely going to make you sleep good. You're going to sleep real good. For sure. Some strains you might smoke and you don't feel sleepy. Alcohol, you drink enough alcohol, you crashing out in a good way. So that's why I still believe, once I got mature in my walk with God, I understood that alcohol was in the Bible, but it took me time to grow as a man to understand why. Because sometimes you need to feel differently outside of your human experience. You need to come outside of it for a while. That's what people do it for. I need to step away from these problems for a while. You know what I'm saying? I need to step away from this circumstance. So I'm going to have a drink. I'm going to have a drink and step away from this circumstance, and I ain't going to be thinking about it. If I do, I'm going to be working through it while I'm thinking about it. But most people don't drink to be depressed and drink to talk about problems. They drink to forget. So that's me understanding how to use alcohol in a proper way. And that's biblical, because it says, let a poor man drink strong drink and remember his poverty no more. That's the biblical way of how to use alcohol. That's what I'm saying. See, but if you come from one of them religious churches where the dude, he struggled with alcohol in the 80s, you know, them type of preachers, he gonna tell you shouldn't be drinking at all. But that's his problem. He got the problem with alcohol. You don't. You ain't got the problem with alcohol. So then I'm not gonna limit you from having some table wine with your woman and having a nice meal, steak and potatoes, and having some red wine and Merlot, and because I struggled with alcohol in the 80s. And it's a lot of preachers that do that. You preach, your standard is put on everyone else because you couldn't handle alcohol in your life. Because in your story, your alcohol was so much of a problem, you go up and preach that nobody drank. But that's not the Bible. What I'll tell you is my experience with alcohol. And to take caution, I'll use it as a cautionary tale. But I will also balance it out to say that you might not have the same problems. You may not ever be like I was. Because I grew up drinking, right? Maybe you will never be like me. Maybe you'll never go through that. So I don't want to limit you to my experience to say that's the same thing that's going to happen to you when it's in the Bible that you can drink. Then I have to change my point of view and say alcohol is not a sin. It's not a sin. Excessive alcohol is a sin. But just like a little drip of alcohol and then you're sinning, you know how some people actually thought that? Many of us. When I first became a Christian, I thought it was wrong like that. I went to a church, a Catholic church, but I ain't never been a Catholic. But I went with these dudes when I was in Los Angeles, right? I went to this Catholic church and they was handing around communion and it was real wine. And the dude I was with, I was like, yo, that was real wine. I was mad, boy. I was hot. Because at that time, I ain't want to drink. I ain't want to smoke. I ain't want to do nothing. I was hot. Like, why he didn't tell me it was real alcohol, man? They was drinking real alcohol in this church, in this Catholic church. It was red. I think it was white wine. But it might have been red wine, actually. I think it probably was red wine. It might have been Merlot, you know. But for some reason, I think it was white wine. But it was from the same cup, and everybody was passing around this cup, right? And then he told me that was real wine. I was like, then you know, I started to feel tipsy a little bit. Man, I was mad, boy. I was mad. I was mad at first. I was tight a little bit. But see, that was me when I was younger, when I was 20 years old, you know. But as I grew as a man, I understood it's a right way and a wrong way to use alcohol. That's why they call it alcohol abuse. Because it's a wrong way to use it. It's a right way to use it. It's a right way to use it, you know. And the Bible says, you know, you drink and forget your poverty. It's people in poverty, you know, and you need to keep your mind off of it. I mean, how you going to be consumed with it? Especially if you start getting in the matrix of it all. You start getting in the matrix of it all, man. It can overwhelm you. So that's why I'm about to be back homeless on the streets. I'm definitely going, after July, I'm going to be tipsy the right way. But just to get past the state, this position, this circumstance in my life. But that's me. I can handle it like that. You know, you might not be able to do it, but I'm not going to be limited because the next person is not able to handle alcohol. Well, they can quit. I haven't drank in 10 months, so I don't have a problem. I proved that I don't have a problem with it. Now, the next man might not ever in his life be able to go that long without drinking. You know, and but I can honestly say, you know, that I have. I drank a little bit of Chardonnay when I first came to New York. And that was over 10 months ago. That's it. That's all I've had. And I needed to be like this because of the military objective that I had. So, as you can see, I'm a well-rounded person, a balanced person. You know, I grew as a person. It's a lot of Christians that don't grow. That's why you got to make sure you listen to people that's constantly growing and knowing what's in that Bible. Knowing what's, not assuming that you know. Not assuming the Bible. Knowing what's in the Bible. I look and find out everything, especially with Google. I Google everything. And I find out what I need to know about the Bible. That's what a Christian should always be doing. You should be Googling little questions that you got, all kind of little stuff that's in the Bible concerning what's in the Bible. You should be finding it out for yourself, not relying on the standard of somebody that's around you. Find it out for yourself. All right, so yeah, I'm going to keep coming back on this.